Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just good stuff. Check this out, okay? The word for the Garden of Eden, Kedem. Numerical translation, 144. Now the value of tree of knowledge, all right, in the garden, right? Eitz HaChaim, 233. 144, 233. And you can take those numbers. So
like the Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci
is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. The Greek symbol for golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And joining me today is, where'd you go? Oh, there you go.
I'm right here.
Mukunda.
What's up,
how's
guys?
it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. The topic is right in the title, as you see, Indo-European influence on Israel and the Bible with Gnostic Informant. That's what you have on your side. We're going to get into the, all types of Aryan myths and Aryan languages and how we can even know if it's influencing the Bible. What kind of methodology are we doing? What are we looking at? What kind of evidence do we have? Is it archaeology? Is it textual? We're going to get into that because there's good evidence for there being Indo-Aryan or Indo-European influence on the Israelite tradition and the Bible. Yeah. And yeah, make sure you guys hit the subscribe to Meru Media. He does a lot on Vedic religions and Indian religion and Hinduism, stuff like that. And so definitely check that out. Thank you. There's that. So I'm going to start off. Actually, do you have any thoughts on this before I even bring up? I have a little bit of a few slides that I want to show people on this. But I want to let you open it up, actually.
Yeah. So, on the Bible and Christianity, so we know for sure, especially I would say in the 4th, 5th millennium CE onwards, there probably is a considerable influence of Indian thought directly into Christian metaphysics, Christian theology, and so on. But pre the Christian era, there's not, I wouldn't say direct from India. It's all mediated through either Persia or through the Mesopotamian region in prehistory. I think the more apt conversation is around Indo-European and Indo-Aryan influence into probably around like the post captivity period is where I think this most significant.
Right here.
Yeah,
the Persian.
That period.
Well, this is the Achaemenid Empire, I should say, but that Alexander takes over. But yeah, that period.
Yeah, of course, there's earlier Indo-European motifs that play a role coming through the Mesopotamian or vice versa. Like for example, like Leviathan versus Yahweh and then the concepts of the like Indra and Vritra or that kind of stuff. That I think is a bit older and a bit more diffused, so to speak.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. The Indra Yahweh parallels. I have a friend of mine who I have his book here, Jay Dolan. Here it's right here. Jay Dolan. I actually reached out to him. Maybe he could jump in here and jump in if he wants. But Talieson's map.
Yeah,
And,
it's funny.
yeah,
I just spoke to him recently. He, I sometimes I have these Twitter spaces we do, and he joined, and we had some good conversations around the Celtic mix with the Vedic and like the influence on each other, or how they come. I mean, the common origin and the differences. It was pretty cool. It was a good conversation.
Yes, and so he talks about Indra and Yahweh and their parallels and stuff like that, and so that would be cool to have him jump in and explain that a little bit. Before I get through, I want to start this conversation off with some things that I prepared, and then I want to get your thoughts on everything that you want to talk about too. I want to just kind of show something real quick on,
Sure.
So people understand. Like, okay, so this is the Indo-European migrations. They start off with the Yamna culture. I'm just going to start this over, and just take a look at this. You have this Yamna culture in Eurasia and the steppe, and they branch off to Anatolian and Danube, which becomes the ancestors of the Greeks and Latins. Okay, and then as you see how they branch in different directions. They go north, they go south, they go east, they go west, and all of a sudden you have the Armenians over there, you have Andronovo culture over there, and then boom, all of a sudden you start seeing the Vedic, Mitanni, and then here you go, Medes, Parthians, Persians, Vedic, Indo-Aryans, boom. That's the world. It's the Iron Age setup, as you know. I'll just play it one more time because it went pretty fast. Starting off with this Yamna culture, and it goes in different directions, goes south and west and east and north, and it just and we can see this in the evidence of linguistics. That's how we know. Like, for example, the Lithuanian gods. Let me just finish this off, and I'll keep going. So see how they branch off, and then all of a sudden you get into this Vedic period, and then the Iron Age. Boom, that's the Iron Age. Okay, so if we look at some, for example, like Lithuanian religion, I think I had the Lithuanian gods up here. Maybe I just got rid of them. Let me pull it back up. Actually, yeah, list of Lithuanian gods. I have it right here. This is just Wikipedia, but it's just quick and easy. If you look at these names of these gods, this is all the way in Northern Europe. Like, this is like this is the cold, snowy Lithuania. But look at these gods. You have Osirine, you have the Devas. The Devas are called the gods. The supreme deity is called Deva. Deus Patar. I don't see him on this map, but that's a god that you find in that region. Deus Patar, which is Jupiter, or in Vedic religion, Deus Patar. But you can see how look at how many overlap there is with not just like Greek and Latin, but also in the Vedic, also in the Sanskrit gods that you find in Sanskrit, Asura, Ushas in Vedic Hinduism. This is all the way in Lithuania. I don't know if people understand where Lithuania is. Look, this is where Lithuania is. What is that doing there? And this is evidence. There's people who've written books on this. I think I have one of the over here somewhere. Here it is. This is an old book. This is a very old book, but a good one. It might be a little bit dated, but J.P. Mallory's In Search of the Indo-Europeans, and it goes through all the linguistic evidence and basically going the word.
There's a book I'll show you too, but continue. Hold on.
Yeah, the word for father, the word for mother. I mean, I've talked about this on my channel over and over. Everyone, if you watch my channel, you know this. The word for father is father in English, pater in Greek, and pitar in Hindu or in Sanskrit. So there's obviously they're obviously coming to an ancestral, some sort of ancestral language, which is what we call Indo-European or Indo-Aryan, because Iran really is literally where the word is for Aryan, Iran,
right?
And so there's different ways to describe what we're talking about here. But anyways, this book right here, he even shows how even going back to the stone, like this is obviously hypotheses because we came out writing in the Stone Age, but we find words in Semitic languages and in Indo-European language that overlap. There's only a few of them. It's not common to find, because those are two completely separate language branches. But this guy was saying if you go back far enough, even those languages have things in common for like trading. So like the words for like ox, words for like wheel, or words for like grain. you find in common. So like you have these two major language branches, Indo-European and Afro-Asiatic, and they're completely different language groups. But even those two have a few tiny little set of words that are in common. So just we're going back deep.
So there's actually a good scholar. You can check him out. He's got a free website. His name is Nicholas Kazanis. He's a Greek guy. He's from Greece. He wrote this book called Vedic and Indo-European Studies. And so he's, he speaks Greek fluently. He knows Sanskrit. He knows a bunch of these different languages. And he's a little more on the, let's say, the not mainstream. So he's not mainstream position. But he makes very interesting arguments around not only the grammar, but the vocabulary of Sanskrit and its like more universal nature than other Indo-European forms. Like for example, Lithuanian so Sanskrit and Lithuanian are the two most well-preserved Indo-European languages, meaning like they hold the three masculine, feminine, neuter. They also have first, second, third person, and they have all 8 declensions, right? Nominative, accusative, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, vocative, and then instrumental. So they have all those, which, like when you look at Greek, they have about 5. And Latin, I think, has like 5 also. But it's very interesting that interaction. And like in the map you showed, it's very fascinating too, because there's various lines in linguistics that are becoming, it's complex. Like there's this, there you go. Right.
You get the nominative, genitive, dative, and then accusative, and also vocative, which is not as common to call, to say, Zeus, Ozeo, So, but yeah, you said 5, that's correct.
Right. And then Sanskrit has 8, right? So they have ablative, genitive, locative.
Wow.
And
it's more, so that's interesting. It's actually more complex in a way.
Yeah.
Expressions.
It is. And it's also more, it could be initially a little more difficult to learn. And then there's also demarcations between what's known as Atmanepada and Parasmanepada, when you use the word to say to do one for oneself versus for do to others or others. So there's like really deep, intricate grammatical rules, which is also why Sanskrit developed probably the most sophisticated grammar until the modern era, but with like people like Frege and Gadamer and a few other of these linguists of the modern day. But there's been a huge, massive linguistic library of linguistics. Starting from most people will know someone like Panini, he wrote around like 5th, 6th century BC. So before Alexander's period of time, a little before that. And he's
a very famous writer, linguist or whatever.
Yeah, he's considered the father of linguistics.
Yeah.
And his grammar, which is kind of a generative grammar, is that basically from any root word, you can build any word sentence you want. So yeah.
And that's another thing is like the Greeks were there. You have grammarians, logicians, philologists in Greek, and people go like, why don't you find this in other? Don't bite that. You can't bite that. She's biting stuff that she can't bite. So yeah, and the people are going like, you don't find this in Hebrew. The Hebrews don't have grammarians. Egyptians, I think they have a few. They have like some very, very archaic, like old style writings. Like, but then you start getting advanced grammarians in Greeks in the classical period, but also all the way in India at the same time. So it's not just the Greeks; it's all the way. And so there's some sort of common lineage of like very studious, scholarly type of mindset that you find in these Indo-European traditions. Right.
And this is actually, it's interesting because I think, we don't have enough data outside of like, frankly, like the Indian tradition and the Greek tradition and some of the Latin around how they thought about linguistics. It just hasn't been preserved well. It's been lost to history or whatnot. But Panini here is very fascinating. Like I've studied a bit of him. And of course, when you study Sanskrit, you have to learn some of his rules. And he put it, the Ashtadhyayis, what's 8 sections, is basically the idea of a sutra of any type is a tiny couple words that equals a sentence. And like for example, in the Brahma Sutras, it says "Ato Brahma Jignyasa," after which inquiry into Brahman is started. So the entire line encompasses a thought, a full structure. So people write one line, they'll write 40 pages of commentary, because each area is deeply embedded. It's like a codex. Each line is a codex of an entire thought or a concept.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get into the actual Aryan, the Iranic Persian culture that influences not just the Bible, but just Israelite rites, ritual, and religion.
Right.
And we can find that in this book that Gad Barnea produced called Yahwism Under the Achaemenid Empire. This is very new from this year or last year. It's up to date. It's very cutting edge. This is like the new scholarship that people should be getting themselves familiar with if you're interested in this stuff. Edited by Gad Barnea and Reinhard Kratz. So I'm just going to skim through some of the stuff that's in here. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can see it pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this in the preface, it talks about how the Yahwistic colony on the island of Elephantine at the now's first. And the reason why we keep talking about Elephantine so much is because that's all the evidence we have. We don't have documentation of the Israelites in Judea before the Hellenistic period. There's not much other than steles and inscriptions, and then if you're taking the Bible at face value and you're just reading the prophets saying this prophet lived in this time, well, then that methodology is bad. We're just begging the question on some of these things. Okay, so anyways, the reason why I talk about the Elephantine so much is because we have physical evidence that we can touch with our hands that we can't there's no fudging the numbers here. We have it. We can look at it. We can examine it. And so we find there a Jewish Yehudi colony there. They're Jews. They call themselves Jews. They are Jews. And they worship Yahweh. And he talks about how in these documents, documenting Yahwistic daily life, Gad Barnea offers a new detailed analysis of Papyrus Berlin, which is famously known as the Passover Papyrus. And he talks about that. And then he says, there is no hint of a Passover or a feast of Masot being known and observed prior to the Hellenistic period. Another cultic observance could fit the description better, which is interesting. And I talked to him about this. He says that the fact that they're asking when we should do the Pesach is evidence that this is not the Pesach from the Bible, because the Pesach from the Bible is on a fixed date. You wouldn't ask when we're doing it. You would just know when the Pesach is. So I was like, wow, that's very fascinating. I was instantly convinced by that. But then it says this, according to Barnea, is the Zoroastrian Yasna. What? Yasna.
That's pretty crazy.
This is an Aryan, Indo-European tradition of fire. This is so central to all Indo-European religions. The hearth, the fire, Agni, the Atar. And then so you have in Greek, you have the Vesta. In Latin, you have the Hestia. This was central. They had the fire of Vesta was lit for 1,000 years in Rome, was never ever extinguished until the Christians took over. They lit the fire for that long. It was guarded by priests and priestesses, and they kept the fire lit in their entire existence. Plutarch's writing about this, going, there's never been a time when this fire has ever been out. It's been lit forever. Who knows how long it goes back to? He says that the term Pontifex Maximus is as old as roads because it has to do with building bridges. Anyways, specifically, Zoroastrian Yasna, specifically the Haoma drinking ritual intended to purify those who partake in it. Unlike the Passover or the Masat festival, this ritual is well documented in the Achaemenid period and the cultic assimilation of the Yahwist with Achaemenid Zoroastrianism was so strong that they had an Athrodin I don't know if you know how to pronounce that, but I'm
Atarvatan.
yeah. Okay. Say it one more time.
Atarvatan.
Atarvatan. A Zoroastrian fire altar in the temple to Yahweh.
That's pretty crazy.
Mind should be exploding right now if you never heard this yet. And then, okay, so that's one of the things they talk about in here. Another thing they talk about, let me just kind of skim through this. I'm going to, let's see, where do we go here? Let's just go into the actual article itself. Because
Well, there's a mention of Zoroaster up there I saw earlier.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Over here?
You're right.
Oh,
here.
okay. Cyrus serving as a model for representation of Jesus of Nazareth as the Christ. Oh, that's true. Cyrus is called the Christ in
The Messiah. It's called the Messiah.
in the Old Testament. People don't realize the Messiah term is being thrown around in the Old Testament for all types of characters, not even Jewish characters. David's called the Messiah and the Anointed One, and so is Cyrus. Okay, that's interesting too. But I wanted to show you.
Well, it's actually that point. There's actually, if you go back, the Shoshant, right? So if you go up, the Shoshant,
yeah,
that is essentially like Jesus, right? The Shoshant is the future Messiah that's going to come within the.
That's what I was looking for. Tell us about this.
So it just he's supposed so within the tradition, right? Because within Zoroastrianism, when the dead are dead, you're not burned, you're not buried, you're left out in nature. What they would call now, they call towers of silence, and basically the animals, vultures all eat you. But when the end of times come, when the war between the Druj versus the Asha gets to a point where Asha wins. And Ahriman's defeated, the Shoshant comes to resurrect the dead and bring them back into the realm of light of Ahura Mazda.
So it's funny because Messianism is almost like the one marker that separates like the sort of pagan religions from the Jewish religion. But then you find out that if you go deeper, you find out this idea of a savior chosen by God is actually very deeply Zoroastrian. And I think it's in the Avesta and the Gathas, I'm pretty sure. But I know for sure it's in at least the Avesta. So, okay. So there's there's a bunch of stuff in here. This is just in the preface, but I really want to get to what he actually says in the actual article that's written by Gad. He's the first one, page 1, Elephantine. And so you can see, he talks about, there's a lot of stuff in here that I should link this in the description. I'll put this in here. As soon as I'm done presenting this, I'll put this in the description for people to come back and find this later. It's for free. You can get it online for free. So he talks about Elephantine. We already went over that. And he talks about some of the stuff that's in here. But what's really fascinating right here, it says right here, the promulgation of Achaemenid concepts are known to have impacted pretty much all cultures that came into contact with its sphere or influence. Its impact on Hellenic civilization was profound. Citing okay. And I've read I've read M.L. West's book on Persian influences and how the Persians and Greeks were in contact with each other and influencing. I'm going to get into Heraclitus and Zoroaster in a second too, as was for influence on Egyptian law and the Hebrew Bible. So Persians were no small kid on the block. Even though we don't have their writings, we lost all their writings. Islam did not preserve much of the Persian historians and philosophers. They're mentioned by the Greeks. If you read a lot of these Greek sources, they mention Persian people all the time. And this Persian author said this, and this Persian author said this, but we just lost their work. So that we know they existed. They were writing stuff down. We just, for some reason, we lost it all. I have devoted an article elsewhere to an in-depth analysis of AZ cultic features among Yahwists at Elephantine, which I'll summarize and contradict the study of Peberlin. So he says right here, the Aswan stele, a damaged middle part of a larger red sandstone stele, was found in Aswan. It was dedicated on June 458 BCE. Contained the following text. This Burzmadin, you know how to say that or no?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Commander of the garrison of Syene, built in the month of Siwan, that is Mehir. That's the month where named after Mithra. Right?
Yeah.
That's the month of Mithra. In year 7 of Artaxerxes the king. So okay, so this is a text in Egypt that has this interesting passage, and he says, "For the sake of this paper, I'll focus solely on the term Bersmadin found in this inscription. This Indo-Aryan term he uses. I love how he just gets right to it. The Indo-Aryan term found here, transliterated into Aramaic, is almost certainly related to the term Artaka Barsmani, found in
Artacha.
Artacha.
Yeah, Arta is
Artaveda. Artaveda.
Well,
True,
no,
right?
no. This is the word in Zoroastrianism. So
Okay.
it means truth. It's also
Isn't that what the Artaveda means? Truth
no,
Veda.
no. Atharva Veda is actually connected to Athar, which is the god. The
Okay.
god of fire in Zoroastrianism, and Atharva in Sanskrit is also refers as a word for fire. So there's
So
some
that's
indication.
interesting because fire was considered the logos, the truth, in some of these thoughts. And I'm gonna get to Heraclitus.
But that's interesting too, because fire in both traditions of the Zoroastrians and of the Hindus is the messenger of the gods, right?
Yes.
Is the one connecting the bridge from the gods to humanity.
Exactly. It all comes back to the fire, the eternal fire of the logos of God,
Right.
which Heraclitus. In fact, let me just I can just go to Heraclitus now real quick, just to plant this seed in your head of what Heraclitus actually says. I'm pretty sure I have. Oh, did I not save Heraclitus in my notes? I have it right here, so I can just do it real quick. Add page. Okay. So let me go back to where I was and then look at this. In the fragments of Heraclitus, he says, this fragment one says, through this word, which is the Greek word for logos. See, footnotes, logos. Okay, so they translate it as word, but I like to keep the word logos in its context because we're not talking about just a word. We're talking about something very philosophical. It could mean reason. It could mean logic. It could mean truth. It could mean a lot of things. Is evermore, yet men are unable to understand it when they hear it. By the way, this is from a 600, or I think Heraclitus was around 500 BC.
Roughly, yeah. Right.
Yeah, 500, 6th century. That's what I was trying to say. This is in the 6th century BC, at the turn of the 6th and 5th century BCE. Or I'm sorry, the turn of the, right there, 500 BC. Is because he talks about Pythagoras and Homer, so we know he's after them. We can date him pretty good. If he mentions Pythagoras, calls him a bumbling idiot. Let me just show you guys that real quick.
I think they were actually they might have been contemporaries.
Yeah. He says the learning of many things teacheth a not understanding. Else would taught Hesiod and Pythagoras and Xenophony. Yeah. So Hecataeus, it's not Hecataeus of Abdera, that's Hecataeus of Malatius. So then he wrote in the 500s BC. So 540 BC would be Hecataeus of so this is after 540 BC. After that. So we okay, but you're right. He could be living in the same time as them. It just has to be at least after them at some point. Anyways, the point is to go back to what I was showing you. He talks about this logos concept. They're all things coming to pass according with this logos. Men seem as if they had no experience of them when they make trial of words and deeds such as I set forth, dividing each thing according to its kind and showing how it truly is. But other men know not what they are doing when awake, even as they forget what they do in sleep. And there's a lot of different translations for Heraclitus. I know there's people are going to say that's not a good translation.
You know what's interesting? I think sometimes people take the word logos within pre-Christian thought to represent like an ontological thing, where it could really just be a linguistic thing about the nature of language.
Yeah.
Because like the power of logos is the idea of the sense that from thought we can issue out language that other people can engage with. Right. So it is in some sense like, it can be an ontological metaphysical thing, but I think for many of these thinkers it was a linguistic thing more so than an ontological thing.
Yeah. So he says this cosmos. Now this is where you get into the fire aspect, because it's all connected. His logos and the cosmos are sort of different aspects of this, what he calls the ever living fire. So the logos is the all-pervading truth. That is responsible for all the flux in the cosmos. As flux is big to Heraclitus's doctrine, and he says, which is the same for all. No one of the gods or men has made the cosmos, but it was ever, is now, and ever shall be an ever-living fire, or an all-pervading fire, which measures of it kindling and measures going out. The transformations of fire are, first of all, sea, and half of the sea is earth, half whirlwind. Like, whoa. Okay, let me just go through what he says about fire. That one's not important. Fire is a want and surfeit. Fire in its advance will judge and convict. That's interesting. Judge and convict. That's very fast. Okay. God is day and night, winter and summer, war and peace, surfeit and hunger. But he takes various shapes, just as fire. Ooh. When it is mingled with spices, is named according to the savor of each. That's interesting, because in Orphic tradition, you would put certain aromatics and spices into the fire to contact specific gods. You had to have a certain aroma to get a hold of Aphrodite. You had to use a certain aroma to get a hold of Dionysus, and whatever god you were trying to hymn to. You had to make sure that the magic was perfectly right, like science. And this is so he's actually mentioning this in this fragment. Fire lives the death of air, and air lives the death of fire. All things are in exchange for fire, and fire for all things, even as wares and gold. Okay, so now Heraclitus is, as you mentioned, living in the time of Pythagoras. He's also living in the time of Zoroaster. Same time.
Yeah, Zoroaster is interesting because there's a lot of scholarly debate on this, whether he was, like 1000 BC or if he was 500. Because
the evidence is pretty good that he lived in the 6th century BC, because it's like the Bible. Their own sources say he lived in 1000 to 1500 BC. Their own sources say this, but there's just no evidence. Yeah. It's like Moses. There's just no evidence. But then all of a sudden, someone did write the Gathas. The Gathas were composed by someone who called himself Zoroaster.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. This is where it's like, were the Gathas composed by him, or were they compiled by him?
Right.
Were they already there and he added to it? Because there's the younger Gathas, the older Gathas, and they all have different flavor and different, like, the languages have shifted
and
too.
Some of them show very archaic style language, right, that actually could be considered to be.
So the older Gathas are very similar to the late Rig Veda, right?
Exactly.
So the late Rig Veda,
the Vestan language.
Yeah, the Vestan language of the is very similar to the late Rig Veda, which is probably the book 10 of the Rig Veda, the Mandala 10. So it is interesting that there is elements or portions of the Gathas that go back at least to 1500 BCE, if not before that, and then you have the younger parts of the Gathas that are maybe written around 7th, 8th centuries BCE. Maybe that's the Zoroastrian element, because Zoroaster himself sees himself as a reformer of the religion, right? He takes it from its older elements and reforms it to be focused entirely on Ahura Mazda. Whereas before it might have been much more polytheistic in a sense, and you get vestiges of that in the Ashas. Not the Ashas, but the Yashtas, and also the, oh man, now I forget the name. The Misha Spentas. So those are all might have been deities that were worshipped on their own in the past, and then became part of Ahura Mazda, or either his energy or his particular focus. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay, so back to the article. Now that you know that this idea of fire as God, as representing the image of God itself, is not just Persian, also Greek. Deeply Greek. Heraclitus is deeply influential on Plato. As I mentioned before, in the temple of Vesta, the fire was lit and stayed lit. This was a doctrine that you find in Greek, you find in the Hestia, in the temple of the Vestal Virgins. they kept the fire lit. In Persia, they kept the fire lit. And I'm pretty sure in India, they had a fire that was lit forever, right?
Well, so no, it's a little different in the Indian context. The fire's lit forever in the span of each man. So, like, from the stage let's say you belong to the Brahmin community, and you are the first fire you get is the fire that's given to you at the time of your sacred string, which the Persians also get. They wear it around their waist, we wear it around our shoulders. So we get a fire there that we do our first fire as part of initiation, and that fire remains with us until we die. We're supposed to use that fire for our funeral pyre. So that fire is throughout the life of a human being, but there is no like one fire temple, right? A fire in our sense. So Agni in the Rig Veda is understood to be birth in the kindling of the fire, and then his death occurs in the ending of the fire, and he's reborn again constantly in this cycle. So it's not the same as holding an eternal flame like at a temple of sorts.
That's in this, but you do find that in Zoroastrian temples, the fire temples, right?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Now that could be a later tradition. I'm not sure because, but I do think it's probably a pretty early tradition where they kept the fire burning.
Yeah, because the fact that you find that in Greek, Latin, and Persian makes me think that they're all going back to some sort of common ancestor that did some sort of fire thing. It's interesting. Okay, so, and by the way, Prometheus was said to have been fastened to a rock in Scythia, which is very telling of why they thought that was where it happened. He gives people fire. He's in Scythia. And that's almost like the
ancestors. The Caucasus Mountains?
Yeah, Caucasus Mountains. So, some of the sources say that. Some of the sources say Scythia. Some of them say just write Scythia on there. Yeah. And then there's another source that puts it in Pakistan. It doesn't say Pakistan. It says Aria. It uses the word Aria, A-R-E-A or something like that. But it's like, whoa, all the way in, and it says by the banks of the Indus in that source. I can't remember what source that is, but I know for a fact it's out there somewhere. Someone can go look it up and maybe share it in the comments. Okay, so let's go back to this real quick. This idea of fire and the Yahwism and how it influences fire. So, as I mentioned, is almost certainly related to the Artacha. How'd you say it? Artacha, Barnea.
Is also means, like I said, means order, or could also mean truth, right? It's related to the word Rita, which is in Sanskrit, which means truth or reality, or
it's like the
cosmic order. Yeah,
it's like and that's why I flipped over to Heraclitus at this time to show you that he has a very similar idea. He's just using a different word in Greek to relay this concept of the logos as this all-pervading fire. And then he's
that word arta or rita later in Indian languages ends up means season. Rita means season, meaning it follows a cycle. An orderly cycle.
That's like Heraclitus's flux.
Yeah.
That's so crazy how this all overlaps. So he says it's found in Xerxes I's inscription, Barsman with the suffix of a place, Dan. That word Dan means like holder, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Like fire holder, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well, it's probably connected to the word stan that we have now. Right, like Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Yeah, place. It means like place.
Yes.
Place of the Paki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. The term Artacha Barsmi is a complex, but its basic meaning is and the order Yazata, characterized by the exaltation rite. Wow. This syntag, what's that? Syntagma? As it found in KPH, is governed by the verb yad, to worship, and defines, these are Indo-European words, guys.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know, these are not Semitic Hebrew words. We're in the Yahweh temple right now. I hope everyone's following along. We are in a Yahweh temple. We are in a Yahweh temple, but with Jewish priests in a Yahweh temple using these words, Indo-European Aryan words, yad, right? And defines the character which Ahura Mazda and the Arta, the order, Yazata, are to be worshipped. Are you kidding me? And which was now in the imperially sanctioned form of worship according to AZ principles. Isn't that mind-blowing?
That's crazy. Yeah.
We're in a, like, I'm going to repeat myself. We are in a temple to Yahweh run by Jewish priests that are using all these Indo-Aryan terms in their rituals. They didn't even try to translate it. They're just using the same words that the Persians taught them. Probably when they were, as you pointed out, probably when they were in captivity, they probably started adopting all these rituals and started bringing them back with them.
Yeah.
And so, okay, this is pretty big right here. It says the stele is dated to June 6th to 13th, 458 BCE. The 7th year of Artaxerxes I, Xerxes I's son. Since this Bersmadin is described as having been built, it indicates that a cultic structure set up according to the AZ concept of Barsman was functioning at Syene already at the middle of the 5th century BCE. Such a place would presumably include the presence of magus priests. Such a place would be presumably include the presence of magus priests. And this, I think this makes a lot of sense when you look at the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they're obsessed with ritual purity and cleanliness. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever read the Zendavesta. I'm telling you, read the Zendavesta and you're going to go, whoa, these people are clean freaks. They are, you can't even cut your fingernails in the temple, or no, that would be, you defiled, the whole temple has to go, burn it down. If you cut your fingernail in the temple, you just defiled the whole temple. And that's in here.
Yeah.
There's all these like specific codes of keeping the temple pure and clean and not infected by filth. That's basically the whole point. And then you start seeing this in the Hebrew Bible and going, I don't know. You don't find that as much in other, like, it just seems like a very common, very specific thing.
Right. With both the Indians and the Iranians held this for example, and even the temples of, I think the Zoroastrians today and Hindu temples too, you're technically not allowed to enter in the temple if you have a cut, exposed wound, if you're bleeding. So many times women are not allowed during their menses because it's seen as
the Hebrew Bible.
It's in the Hebrew Bible. And yes, you can't cut your hair there. You can't cut your nails there. There's a lot of these like ritualistic purity laws built around temples, and the fire, especially for the Zoroastrians. Like, you can't burn human bodies. You can't cremate because the fire is pure, and the earth, the material, is impure. So you can't put impure things into a pure thing. So the Zoroastrians were very much about like keeping that fire as pure and sanctified as possible. And which is why even most people were not allowed to touch that fire. Only the magi or the priests were allowed into the realm to go engage with the fire.
Yeah, good point. I really thank you for the super chat, Coracro and Tracy Femstar. They're bringing up some good, interesting stuff. We'll get to them as soon as we can. I do want to, for people watching, I do want to continue and not have to interrupt. And I just will remember, just so you know, I'm not ignoring it. Okay, so all right, that was interesting. So you had this it says possibly also a fire altar and provisions for the sacred drink haoma. And if you don't know what that is, this is technically a psychedelic potion similar to soma, not made the same way, different ways they make their drink, but for the same purpose, really, to get to contact with the gods and to receive oracles, to be the priest's job is to contact God in a way. You have any thoughts on the soma and haoma thing? Yeah,
I mean, the soma and homa are similar. I mean, it's the same root. Cognate, yeah.
So is kukeon, by the way.
Yeah, kukeon, yeah. And then so soma is actually even drunk by the gods, right? So Indra drinks soma before he fights Vritra to gain more strength and courage in some sense. So there's some sense of the power of soma to enliven someone. Now I don't know fully how the homa ritual was done in Zoroastrianism, but in much of the Rig Veda is a good part of it is around the soma ritual, the pressing of the soma, and then the drinking of the soma, because you press it, you pour it, and you drink it 5 times in a ritual setting, in the morning, evening, and night. and then a couple times in between. And then sometimes that soma is even drunk at night. Even though there's the night rituals are few and far between, there is indication there were night rituals that were called, it was called atiratra, which means that goes into the night and around over the night. So there is quite a few of these rituals, and they still happen actually. Fritz Stahl, there's a book here that he wrote called Agni, that Fritz Stahl is a scholar in the 70s and 80s, and there probably is a YouTube video on this where he goes to a Vedic sacrifice that's done in 1975 or so in this area of India called Kerala, in which they have performed the sacrifice exactly like they would have 4,000 years ago. Right. In the same way they build, the structures are built, the structures are burnt down, the structures are done in a certain way. And this particular sacrifice is to bring the rains. And it was interesting that, for him, he's like, the rains came at the end of it. I mean, it was a short rain, but it still came. But nonetheless, he was talking about the ritual itself. And it's actually really fascinating. Look at his name is Fritz Stahl. So Fritz or Z and Staal. And he was a fantastic Indo-Europeanist and Vedic scholar.
That's interesting. So so then we go over to the Greeks, and you find this koukeon drink, right? And this is a psychoactive brew that was used in the Eleusinian mysteries for initiates. And so there's different ways they make it. Some ones with wine and cheese. Other ones have no wine. There's actually a myth that says the wine is prohibited from mixing with the drink. So it's interesting that you find different sources with different ways to make it. So it's not, koukeon is not a specific way to be made. It's different. They have different ways it's made. I think at Eleusis, though, it was made with the Demeter's grain.
Was it fermented?
Fermented grain, yeah.
Yeah, so soma and homa weren't fermented.
Right.
So that's very interesting. Right? It's pressed, but which is interesting this is why people are like, okay, what could it have been that if you press whatever it is that would cause some sort of altered consciousness, whether psychosomatic or hallucinogenic or even vitality. And I don't know if people know yet. I mean, and again, it's like if you accept the idea that there's Indo-Aryans traveling, maybe they have this this homa soma in another part of the world, and they kind of just continue the tradition, but with different plants and herbs later.
This is from Mixing the Koukeon, from a Journal of Psychoactive Compounds, 2000. In an attempt to solve the mystery of how so many people over the span of 2 millennia could have consistently experienced revelatory states during the culminating ceremony of the Eleusinian mystery, it has been posited that the barley used in the Eleusinian Koukeon was parasitized by ergot. Look at this. It's a fungus that grows on the barley. So interesting. Yeah, and it's and psychoactive properties that the fungus, and they're eating shrooms. They're basically ingesting mushrooms. It's mind blowing. And so check this out. That word koukeon is also cognate with another psychoactive drink called kumis. This is the Scythian version of the drink. So you have kumis, you have koukeon, and you have soma, and you have haoma. And then the reason why we actually know where this goes back to, how far back this goes, because look at Indo-European vocabulary. If I do a word search for libate, there is this word gehu. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. Gu or geu. And it sounds like ku, like koukeon or kumba. It has that root word to pour or libate, which is gu. But it's also cognate with the word for God. The English word, the word that we use for God, the God or the gods, either one is a cognate with the same word we use for psychedelic potions all across the world. Isn't that mind blowing? And it's connected to Hotra, Hotar, Juhoti, and Homa, right? And Homa this is different, right, but this is different Homa from the oblation, right? Yeah, this is just the action in Sanskrit, whereas a Soma is the cognate with Homa with the Vistit. So this Homa is different from Homa. Oh, it's not, but that's not the same cognate. No.
because
Oh, okay.
homa is connected to the word soma, which is part. I think the root is so, which is to press. So both homa and soma are considered pressing homa, but this homa is
Right, but
connected
it's
to
all. I
view.
think it might have. I think it could have something to do with this pour, press.
Yeah, well, yeah, poor and press would be two different words, right?
Yeah,
Even the root word, and this is again where Panini is important because you see the difference between when you write it out, is it how, but ho, because like the long vowel, short vowel as the root changes the word,
yeah.
right? So
Interesting. So okay, so let's go back to this. Where I was at. I just want to see people to see how this concept of this sacred beverage is widespread and across all these different cultures. But here we find it in the Jewish temple to Yahweh. So like, this is just getting crazier as we go. Okay, and we're not done yet. I got a couple more I want to show you. So here's where he says, possibly a fire altar, provisions for the sacred drink haoma. Okay, we already saw that. Then he says the presence of magi in contact with the Yahwist Elephantine is in fact documented on a legal papyrus from October 30th, 434 BCE. Wow. In which a house is bequeathed to a certain woman or a previous real estate transaction between Caspians and Iranian names and a Yahwistic family is recorded. These magi serve as witnesses to the transaction. They have names that reflect Mazdian, Indo-Iranian cultic roots. Mithra Sarah. That's. I wonder if Sarah, the name Sarah, has something to do with that too. Mithra.
yeah, no,
Sarah.
I don't think it could be Sarah. I think I say Sarah can be moving right here. Sarah says and like
So is
moving.
Mithra moving?
Yeah, I have to look. If it's Sanskrit, yeah, that's what it'll be. But if it's
But then again, Abraham's moving from Ur to the west, and he's married. The name could be like sort of like a fable. He's married to moving. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't know. I'm just that's
we
that's
should
the
look
first
at
thing that
the
popped in my mind.
footnote and see what that footnote connects to.
This one down here.
No, number 26. Yeah, number
Yeah,
26.
I analyzed these in Barnea, Achaemenid,
Okay.
Zoroastrian. Okay. Anyways, they lived in proximity to the Yahwist and seemed to have been intimate enough with them to serve as witnesses for a relatively mundane property transaction. Several additional names with similar cultic features appear in the Elephantine onomasticon in various forms of association with Yahwist. These names are important as they reflect AZ concepts that were central to the Achaemenid times and show that they were known in Egypt at the time. They include Arta, Asha, cosmic truth, order, Ater, also Achi, sacred fire. There we go again. Baga, the gods. That's even more interesting because it's like instead of using Elohim, why wouldn't they just use Elohim? They use Fravarti or Fravarti.
No, Favarti. Yeah, that's another word. Yeah,
A Zoroastrian
means
term
God. Yeah,
for the spirit of protection, the abode of the individual soul. It's more of like daimon,
yeah,
because
yeah.
daimon has to do with souls and it's also with gods. So this is actually a good way to translate this would be daimon. Haoma, Yazd, Haoma, or the AZ ritual drink, Ahura Mazda, Lord of Wisdom, head of the pantheon, Mithra, one of the chief deities, Spenta, bountiful, holy, used to describe the Amesha Spenta divinity. It's like a holy trinity right there. Ahura Mazda, Mithra, and Spenta.
Well, Spenta is not one; it's a group.
Bounty, holy, yeah, okay. Used to describe Amesha Spenta, the Amesha Spenta divinity. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So there's a group of deities, but it's like the Holy Spirit, though. It almost reminds you of the Trinity. You have Ahura Mazda, and then you have this Mithra mediator god. It might not be his son, but he acts like Jesus does. He's the mediator who comes and talks to people and does and engages the people on the planet. And he's also a savior. And then you have this other part of the triad where it's this bountiful holy. And it represents a bunch of deities, but that Holy Spirit represents a bunch of angels too.
Yeah. I mean, the Amesha Spenta. I mean, again, this is where it's like it gets like do we want to over-index and find the similarities, or
No,
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out that this triad that you find in Platonism, I think you can see it here as
well,
different.
yeah, the triad's very important for all Indo-European because of their masculine, feminine, neuter, right? They have each of the language forms itself, and they're connecting, and even first person, second person, third person,
Yeah.
right? It's very like built in and to the language itself.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like you have this head, this almost unknowable, undefined
Right.
head of this triad, which is Goramaza in this case. And then you have this more defined mediator figure, Mithras, and then there's this other little undefined, once again, kind of more spiritual. It literally has the word holy in it, like, you know what I mean? And it represents a bunch of divinities. So it's like I'm just pointing out, like, I can see why these triads were pretty popular. You can see it.
Oh yeah.
One of which, our Métis, is also used in a theophoric personal name at Elephantine. Ayaza, Yaza, the Avestan concept of God worship and the sacrifices to the gods. Arta Barzana, recorded here only as a patronymic. This last PN is probably a Zitadnami
I don't know what that is.
of the concept behind Artacha Barzimani, founded KPH, which is also featured on the Oswan Stele. So that's a whole lot of data right there, like mind-blowing data that we just went through right there. I like what, like, that's crazy. But this is where it gets even crazier. The Tarodan, the fire altar. This is where you see the purely Indo-Aryan rituals playing out in the Yahweh temple. And he says the most striking sign of assimilation of the ritual elements documented among the Yahwists at Elephantine is the fire altar, which they themselves describe as being associated with their temple. In one of the papyri in Elephantine, documenting the events surrounding the destruction of the Yahwistic temple at Elephantine, offerings made to Yahweh in the temple are mentioned with a loan word, Tardan.
Well, the apostrophe before is an A, so that's Atarwadan.
Atradan.
Yeah, from the Persian Atar. There you go. Yeah.
Atradan.
Yeah.
And then you see right here, he gives us the Hebrew, which is Atradan, the same word, Atrodon. I don't have the Nikud, so I don't know exactly what the vowels are, but you have Alpha, Tau, Resh, Vav, Dalet, and Nun. So Atrodon, it's the same word. It's literally just taking this Aryan word and putting it with Hebrew letters, Atrodon. And so from the Persian, Atar, fire, and then we said Dan is place, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Fireplace. It's literally the word for fireplace. This papyrus is dated to 410 BCE. This is often translated simplistically as brazier. However, and then those slick little divinity school types always trying to get away with this shit. However, there can be little doubt that this is technical cultic loanword into Aramaic, rooted in the Avestan Atar, holy fire. And he's absolutely right. If you know anything about this Atardan, there's no escaping this. It's
so
there.
Let me ask you this question. So this is roughly, would you date the Septuagint to after this time? And
yes. Would
you also think that the Hebrew Bible was put together before this or after this?
I think, and so did the late Russell Gamerkin, and I believe Gad and Jonathan would agree with this, that there's definitely Hebrew sources that do go back to a century or 2 centuries before the composition or the collection of what we call the Torah or the Tanakh. And the translation in Greek happens around 270 BCE. But we think most of it's being done in the decades prior to 270 BCE. But there are sources that do go back into the Persian period and maybe even beyond that.
Right.
It's hard to, we're just speculating here. But this right here, as you point out, this is good this helps you like understand that there's some sort of there's a Yahwistic tradition pre-Judaism called Yahwism. And this is what we're looking at right here. So I wouldn't call this Judaism yet. I'll call this Yahwism. That's what this is. It's the proto-Judaism type of thing that you find. So, okay. So this papyrus dated to 410 BC. However, there can be little doubt that the technical loan word into Arabic in the Vestan Atar, holy fire. There would be no need to resort to a technical Mazdian cultic term, especially when addressing what was probably an Iranian official. If the intent was simply to refer to a common fire container, if the Yahwist wanted to describe a fire container without a Mazdian connotations, they would have easily expressed it. This is such a good argument. They would have easily expressed it through something along the lines of a purely Aramaic Daud or Danor, right? Why,
I don't know.
That's funny because that's the word for David too, Dawud.
Yeah.
But it's spelled the same, Dawud. Huh? I didn't know that the name for David is the same for fire or whatever. Anyways, the term Atardan is precisely the term used this day for the Zoroastrian fire altar. Isn't that mind blowing? Atashdan, except with the older Avestan form Atar. So it's now the word is Atashdan, but it used to be Atardan, which is the expected Achaemenid usage. The term appears in one of the accounts of the violence perpetuated against the Yahwistic temple during one of the incidents related to the Egyptian revolt. It is written on a single column on the verso and is badly preserved. Nevertheless, key terms offering Mena'a, Yahweh, the God, and Atradan, the fire altar, and all. So he shows you this is exactly what it looks like. The papyri, and you can see it's Aramaic. You know, it's got it's very Jewish the way they write their Aramaic. Mm-hmm. You can see a difference between how a Persian writes Aramaic and a Jewish person writes Aramaic. They have a different style of writing. This is definitely a Jewish writing. And you can see it right there. It has Atradan right there. And then look at there's the word Allah, Allah, the word for God, Allah, literally Allah, almost like the Arabic way of doing it. It's right there. And then it says, let's see what it says right here. It says, so where's the Atar? I'm looking for Atardan here.
This is the last line?
Yes, right here. Atardan, right here. Nice. Atradan. So there it is right here. Right here. Oh, you can see it now. Now when you actually look, that's why I like that. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to actually see it on the papyrus. It's right here. Atradan. So wow. Barnea is a beast.
So let's see the translation he says down here. Yes,
the translation. Okay. To bring manaha, to offer there to Yahweh. Oh, it says Yahweh. Where does it say Yahweh? Oh, right here. The reason why I couldn't notice it is because it's the 3-letter version. Yod He Vav. So Lamek means 2 in Hebrew. Whenever you put a Lamek in front of a word, it means 2. 2 Yod He Vav. Oh, it's the God, Allah. So it says to Yahweh El Allah. Yahweh Allah, basically. So it says, which means to offer there to Yahweh the God.
The God.
That's interesting. Or Yahweh God. Because it doesn't actually have the. It just has to Yahweh Allah. Which, Yahweh the God. Or Yahweh God, I would say. You could say that too. So, okay, in which, except for the fire altar, the fact
there's stuff that's been lost, yeah,
this is mind blowing. I'm blown away by this. The fact that this cultic technical term Atradan is mentioned in the context of the damage wrought with the Yahwistic temple and offering the deity Yahweh makes it practically certain that this is a fire container serving for the ritual, a fire altar associated with the Yahwistic temple. It thus seems that the Yahwist at Elephantine maintain a Mazdian-inspired fire altar that was linked with their temple, as the text seems to suggest, with an offering to Manaha, made to their ethnic deity Yahweh. Since this text deals with the damages inflicted upon the Yahwistic temple, the mention of a fire altar within what appears to be a list of items damaged in the attack would indicate that the fire altar was physically within the Yahweh temple compound, which would also suggest that the temple to Yahweh most probably had features assimilated from AZ. Wait, what does AZ mean again? I'm trying. And
I think it's a Vestin.
A Vestin something, right?
Yeah, it's
I'm pretty sure he gives the terms up here, or maybe not.
yeah, he should. He'll probably be in the beginning.
Yeah,
the first
most
chapter.
academic books have right in the beginning. They have like the terms
I think you passed it. I think you might have passed it.
up here.
Yeah, did he talk about it here? In the preface? No, maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. You would think it'd be right there. I don't know what he means, but he just keeps saying AZ, and I'm assuming it means like something to do with like you said, a vest or a Achaemenid. I think it means Achaemenid something. It means something to do with like Persian religion.
If you want to go to the first actual of the article, the first page or whatever, when he starts it, AZ
Achaemenid
features.
Zoroastrian. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there
Okay.
you go. Yeah.
So now we know. Whenever it says AZ features, Achaemenid Zoroaster, I knew it had something to do with Persian religion. That's why. That's why I was just going over it. Okay, so we got that one out the way. It says, this presence of a fire altar in the Yahweh temple does not denote conversion and did not make the Yahweh Zoroastrian. So he's just, it's true.
It's very clear.
Nothing of the sort would be required of them. It merely shows their allegiance to the imperial paradigm of purity, as I mentioned, and moral accountability, and demonstrates their loyalty to the king, being part of the good creation. Okay. Then you guys can keep reading this. There's a lot in here. There's a lot of stuff in here, but I really wanted to, real quick, before I finish off and throw it over to you to add your thoughts, I really want to show you some stuff in the Bible that shows me. Okay, so Leviticus 6, for example. Leviticus 6 is a big example of this fire idea. And let me just see. I think it's Leviticus 6:13. Now, the weird thing about when you match up the Greek with the Hebrew, it doesn't really line up correctly. So, for example, the verse 9 is over here in the Hebrew, and verse 2 is over here. And we're looking for Leviticus 6:13, but 9 also mentions this word, which is Makada, Where is it? It's in here somewhere. Right here. No, that's not it. Makada. Maybe it's not in this verse. It's in, okay, it's in verse, wait, which one is it? 6:13. Okay, down here. Yes. Yeah. It says, and he shall offer. Let's just use the English because I can't find it right now. Fire. Here's what it says. And he shall put off his garments and put on other garments. There's that ritual purity, right? We find, and to carry forth the ashes without the camp unto a clean place. And I apologize for not being able to go to the Hebrew because it's all misaligned. Like you see how 20 is over here and 13 is over here. I can't find. So this is not translating this. This is something else. I don't know if it's the website or if it's the actual version of Leviticus does not match up for some reason. That I don't know. I'm just went to it real quick.
Is this Cross Bible?
It's Cross Bible. It might just be because the manuscripts don't match up. But for some reason, when I go to Leviticus 6, it starts off on 8. So I'll have to ask Stephen if that's either a glitch or if it's just because the manuscripts are off. I don't really know. Either way, the if we go to verse 13 down here, actually 12. I should start at. The fire upon the altar shall be kept burning thereon.
Yeah.
It shall not go out, and the priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and he shall lay the burnt offering in order upon it, and shall burn thereon the fat of the peace offerings. And so you can even see in the Greek, where it says the thusiasterion. It's a very cultic term for like, you got that sterion, like musterion and thusia. So it's basically like the altar, like the altar, the sacrifice altar. That's what it means. Okay, and so fire shall be kept burning, and kaipur diapatos. The fire shall be kept burning upon the altar continually. And there's that word again, thusiasterion. Spestastatai. So it's saying the fire shall be kept burning on the altar continually. Okay, and I just want to do a quick little. I did find this. And this is from Leviticus 6:9, Makeda, Mokeda, and so it means like the hearth, the fire altar. It's a different word. So notice how we found in the evidence. This is so interesting. The reason why I brought this up. In the actual physical evidence on the ground, archaeological evidence that we find for a Yahweh temple has a Persian loanword. They use atradan. But then when you find in the Hebrew Bible, which is dated to way later, this is the 10th century AD manuscript. And I'm not sure with the Dead Sea Scrolls if there's any variations. That I don't know on the top of my head. My guess is maybe not. But either way, that's still 1st century BC we're talking about. And at that point, they went with their own regular Hebrew word for hearth. So they're not using the loanword anymore. They're not. Isn't that interesting how their whole entire thing just changes up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is there any indication, and this is something, I mean, you probably know way better than I do. Is there a story as to within the Bible as to why they need to keep the fire lit?
It explains it, and what I was just reading, it was for the atonement. It was for keep the fire lit. It's basically the fire that represents Yahweh himself, and you're supposed to put the burnt offerings. It goes to God. It is the representation of God.
I get that, but why did the fire? So this is where I guess this is where I'm driving. Like the Zoroastrian influence is maybe the fire is kept burning forever, whereas before they didn't. I don't know. I mean, and that'd be interesting if they had a fire that they sacrificed to, and then they let the fire go out. But after the Zoroastrians, they created an altar in which the fire remains.
Right. Now check this out. This is from. I'm in Deuteronomy 4. So Deuteronomy 4 gives us some more context about this. And it says, wait, which one is it? It's from Deuteronomy. I'm trying to think of which one it is. Deuteronomy 4:24. So we got to go down a little bit. It says right here, okay. Lest ye corrupt yourselves and make graven image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flieth the heavens, the likeness of anything that creepeth out of the ground, the likeness of any fish, no images. Remember, this is very big. Unless thou lift up thy eyes to heaven, and they see the sun and the moon and the stars and of all the hosts of heaven, thou be drawn away and worship them and serve them, which Jehovah thy God hath allotted unto the peoples under the whole heaven. But Jehovah hath taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace. Ooh, there's another fire imagery going on. Out of Egypt to be unto a people of inheritance as this day. Furthermore, Jehovah was angry with me for your sake, this is Moses talking, and swore that I should not go over to Jordan, and that I should not go into the good land, which Jehovah thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. But I must die in this land. I must not go over to the Jordan, but you shall go over and possess the good land. Take heed unto yourselves, lest that you forget the covenant of Jehovah your God, which made with you, and make you a graven image in the form of anything which Jehovah thy God hath forbid. For Jehovah thy God is a devouring fire.
Jealous God.
Look at this. Oh, actually, we do have a line up here. This one does line up correctly. It says ki, because, that word means because, Yahweh, ki Yahweh, Alahid, Ash, Akliya, Hua. El Kanat. Yeah. So for God is a fire, a zealous fire. That's what it basically says in Hebrew. God is a zealous fire. The word jealous is probably wrong here. Because look at this. In the Greek side, it says, Hotikurios oteos su pur. Katalaskon esti theos zealotes. Zealous. It's not jealous, it's zealous. That word zeal means like, I am fiery. I need you to do this. I'm zealous for this. It doesn't mean I'm jealous. And by the way, I this is my own correction here. I've been known to criticize Yahweh for being a jealous God and going, he's a jealous God. That's not perfect. But like, really, if we actually do a correct translation, it should say zealous. It's two different words. They don't mean the same thing.
Yeah.
And it says right here, theos zealotes, zotes, hote kurios o theos supur. Jehovah, the Lord, is a devouring fire. I love that. I mean, I don't know how more clear you can get that there's some Aryan influence going on here, where God is being a devouring fire. And another thing that you find in Zoroastrianism is they don't make images to God other than that one image that represents Ahura Mazda. It's like a symbol. It's more
it's I think it's the Praveshti, which is the symbol of the soul.
Yeah. So it's more of a symbol than an image. So I don't know. Maybe that might be where they get this idea from. Who knows? I mean, it could just be their own thing. But the idea of God being a devouring fire, to me, says a lot. I think that's all I had. But yeah, back to just to bring up Heraclitus again one more time. This is when I was going to actually bring him up. Heraclitus, where'd he go? Heraclitus. Fragments of Heraclitus. Oh, it's right here. Heraclitus is saying all things in exchange for fire. Oh, where's the one I'm looking for? Fire in its advance will judge and convict. God is day and night, winter and summer, war and peace, surfeit and hunger, and he takes various shapes just as fire. Okay, I think we could see where some of this stuff comes from, especially when we couple that with Gad Barnea's research in the fire temple.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very clear that the fire imagery is. I mean, most human beings have it at some level, but you could tell based on Barnea's research that at least the fire altar, at least the way that in Elephantine they were doing these practices is deeply AZ, Achaemenid Zoroastrian. Like, it is very clearly influenced by these guys. And it'd be interesting to see also like how much influence AZ and Greeks had on each other, on like the vestigial fires, for example. Did that exist before their interaction with the Zoroastrians, or was it like a product of their engagement with Zoroastrians?
Yeah. Now,
but fires. Yeah,
Agni is a big part of Vedic religion. The fire god.
Yeah, I mean, the first line of the Rig Veda starts Agni Ilam Purohitam.
The first line.
The first line is Agni Ilam Purohitam. The foremost of all the Purohits is Agni, right? You know, like yeah.
So Agni is the foremost of all the Vedic gods, really.
By foremost, it can mean a couple different things. It can mean the one, because he's Purohita, which means the one who goes forth, the first one, meaning he's the one who conveys, or he's sometimes seen as supreme, sometimes he's seen as the mediator. It's like the henotheism concept sometimes that plays out here. Each time the god is worshipped or referenced, he's made supreme for the purposes of that particular mantra or worship. So Indra, when he's worshipped, is so if you look at first line of the Rig Veda,
guardian deity, Agni is evoked along Indra and Soma. Agni is considered the mouth of the gods. Offerings to Homa. That's the one word we found before.
Yeah.
That's a votive ritual. Interesting.
Yeah. Homa. We still use the word like homum. It means to do ritual sacrifice. I mean, it replaces the word yagya.
So that's Agni, right? Or
Yep.
is this a so this is the same thing. This
Right.
is just like what you find with Yahweh or with Vesta or with Hestia, right?
So but this is the thing. The fire altars are constructed and deconstructed after each homa or yagya, and the fire altar shape is different each time. You can have a shape of a bird, a shape of, they use the fire altar in different forms and shapes for particular rituals.
That's interesting. There's the altar and the ritual, symbolic representation of Hindu cosmology. Interesting. Now, the fire altar, Vedi, or Homa Kavan Kunda, is generally made of brick and stone. Okay, so that's how it's made. Anyways, I just wanted to go back to Agni though. So what do you mentioned? So Agni is major, big time. We're not like, this is no joke, right?
No, Agni is worshipped in every single fire ritual. He's the first thing that you invoke to cleanse, and to the smoke is seen as indication of the offerings reaching heaven.
That's what that's the burnt offering concept with Yahweh.
Yes.
So it says in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, and I think Numbers as well, and I think the whole Torah keeps constantly reminds you, a burnt offering goes up to Yahweh. He can smell it and consume it. You're feeding the God that way.
Yeah,
because a lot of the ancients had idols, and the way it worked was you would feed the idol, you would wash the idol, you would take care of the idol like it's a god. But a god like Yahweh or a fire god represented by the fire, the way you feed and can carry the god is by continuing the fire and by putting offerings on the fire. This is big in Greek religion. I learned this when I was in Greece. In Greece, the temple, you don't go into the temple to give an offering or to worship. The fire altar was outside of the temple.
Yes.
And they would light the fire, and then you put stuff in the fire. You can offer. It doesn't have to be a meat. It can be a vegetable or a cake offering, and you put it into the fire, and it goes up, and the god smells it.
So
or
the
you
same
put,
thing.
Or you put different
incense,
aromatics. Incense. Yeah.
So in the Vedic version, even now in the temples, the fire, the yagya or the homa is not done in the temple, but in a place right outside the what we call the sanctum sanctorum. So it's open air, and it's done out in the open air where it's constructed and deconstructed. Like, let me actually give you the first mantra of the Rig Veda, and then I'll explain it. It's Om Agni Ile Purohitam Yagyasya Devam Ritvijam Hotaram Ratnadatatam. It's basically saying, the worship, I praise Agni, who is the Purohita. Like I said, the word can mean priest, or it can also mean the foremost of the sacrifice, who is also the priest of the sacrifice, or performing the sacrifice. He's not only the sacrifice itself, but the performer of the sacrifice. And that sacrifice, which is directed to the gods, he's the giver of wealth, both physical, spiritual, mental, and all that stuff. So he's considered the sacrifice itself and the sacrificer and like the mediator in that sense.
Wow. And so is Agni more of a zealous figure too?
He has different depictions.
See, he's got a sword in this one.
Yeah, all the gods have weapons. Yeah. Right. So Agni is not, he's a commander in the armies too of the gods, and represents depending on his form, like there's Kala Agni, which is the Agni in the form of time, who destroys all things, who is then, it's like depicted in a different form than this form, right? So Agni has two heads in normal depiction, with two heads, and four arms and things of that nature. Wow. But Kala Agni has like multiple heads, multiple arms, as representing all devouring time that kills all things.
I noticed that Agni is actually equivalent.
Ignis. It's connected to Ignis, right? In Latin, Ignis,
but also Hephaestus in Vulcan.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not Hesta and Vestia, the fire, the actual fire. It's the gods that are using the fire. So it's more of an artisan. Is that true for Agni? I don't.
No, Agni is not an artisan. So Agni,
okay, so this is wrong then. It should. I think they're trying to do male to male, and I don't think you have to do that.
No, but Agni is connected to Ignis, which is also connected to Hephaestus. At least
so
linguistically,
there's an indirect connection there.
Yeah, it's linguistic connection. Now, and each tradition uses those words to mean different things. But yeah, Agni isn't the god of like metallurgy or fashioning. That is Thruster.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That's what I was asking. But this is what I would say is more of like Agni, because Hestia is the civic hearth.
Yeah, that's not Agni.
Yeah.
Agni is all fire. He's the fire in the sun, the fire in the human being, the fire in the altar, and the fire that devours.
Just fire itself.
Yeah, yeah, that's his representation. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you still have but you still have, I wouldn't say still have. On the other hand, in the Greek world, in the Western world, and even in the Persian world, you have this concept of the hearth and the everlasting fire. The fire that does not go out. Like, look at this. Ready? Virgin goddess. That's not the one I'm looking for. Vesta has similar functions to divine personification of Rome's public, domestic, colonial hearths. The relationship between Hestia, Vesta cannot be explained in terms of Indo-European linguistics. Borrowing from a third language must be involved, according to Walter Burkhardt. He's always dissing the Indo-Europeanists. Herodotus equates Hestia with the high-ranking Scythian deity, Tabiti. Huh. Let's see what Tabiti looks like. No, it doesn't have any. Was the Scythian goddess of primordial fire. Okay. So there's something going on here with the flaming one.
Tapti is connected there. But
yeah, I was gonna say, isn't there a Sanskrit god that related to this too?
A goddess which becomes
there's your Hestia. There's your Hestia equivalent right there.
Yeah.
This Tabiti figure. But the reason why, and then there's Attar. Here we go. Remember, that's the word right there.
Yeah.
Attar Dan. We just talked about this. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere here. Attar Dan, or Atashdan, as Gad points out, the Zoroastrian concept of holy fire. Look at this beautiful coin, by the way.
Yeah.
Of holy fire, burning and unburning fire, visible and invisible fire, is considered to be the visible presence of Ahura Mazda. There you go. That's what Yahweh's doing. He's the visible presence is the fire itself, and his Asha through the eponymous Yazata. So the rituals for purifying and fire are performed 1,128 times a year. What is that? 3 times a day?
3 times a day.
Yeah. So, okay, so you have this figure in the Gathas, the fire, but I wanted to go back to this. This is what I wanted to find. Worship. Where's the eternal fire? Orphic hymn in one of the Pindar's Nemean Ho's dedication to Hestia. I think it's Vesta. That's the
Vesta is that's the Roman, I think, right?
Yeah. A hearth fire might be deliberately ritually extinguished at need, but its lighting should be accompanied by rituals of completion, purification, and renewal, comparable to the rituals of the eternal flame and a sanctuary lamps. So at the level of polis, the hearts of Greek colonies and their mother cities were allied and sanctified through Hestia's cult. Anyways, what last thing I wanted to point out was this. Vesta, the virgin goddess of the hearth, home, family, and religion, rarely depicted in human form. There we go. Rarely depicted in human form, and was often represented by a fire of her temple, the Forum Romanum. And it says her name, standing by power, origin. Let me see. Wait, years. Where is it? I'm trying to find where it says something about her fire being extinguished after like 1,000 years. Let me see. Maybe it's not. It's just not in here, I guess. I thought I saw this on Wikipedia one time. They were talking about it, but anyways, the point was, wasn't it eternal? What's the word? What's the other word they use for eternal? perpetual or something like that.
Perpetual, everlasting.
Yeah. Anyways, you guys, you know what I mean by the fire of Vesta stayed lit in Rome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find where it's. I guess they just don't have it in here. Maybe, I don't know. All right. Well, what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's look. The fire is vital to Indo-European practice and mythology and ritual. And so with that fire relationship changes from society to society because they're all going to be different. Like the Greeks' relationship with fire is going to be different from the Hindus versus Zoroastrians. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. It says where the majority of temples would have a statue, that of Vesta had a hearth. The fire was a religious center of Roman worship, the common hearth of the whole Roman people. The Vestals were obliged to keep the sacred fire alight. If the fire went out, it must be lit from an arbor felix, an auspicious tree, probably an oak. That's interesting. That represents Zeus. Water was not allowed into the inner aids, nor could it remain longer than strictly necessary in or on the nearby premises. It was carried by the Vestals and vessels called futiles, which had a tiny foot that made them unstable. The temple of Vesta held not the ignes ethereum, the sacred fire, but the palladium of Pallas Athena and the De Penates as well. Both of these items were said to have been brought to Italy by Aeneas. The palladium Athena was, in the words of Livy, fatali pignus imperi Romani, a pledge of destiny for the Roman Empire. Damn, I love this stuff. Such was the palladium's importance that when Gaul sacked Rome in 390 BCE, the Vestals first buried in the palladium before removing themselves to the safety of a nearby carry. Such objects were kept in the Penis Vestae, the sacred repository. That's crazy.
You know what's so interesting about this is this myth, this story is 300-400 years before the Aeneid by Virgil, right? It's such a it just that memory of coming from Troy, coming from from that is pretty awesome. That was still back then, 400 BCE roughly.
Yeah, and it just shows you how they are constantly passing down their mythology through bards, through song, rather than text.
Well, because, it's all human beings remember it, pass it down, right? Like constantly.
Yeah, because Roman literature does not thrive until the end of like the 1st century BC, or like 1st century BC is when you start getting like big Roman literature. Like Greek literature goes back to 500, 600, and then 400, 300 is gigantic. The Romans did not write as much in their early years, but then once they start spreading across the map after they won the war against Carthage, the Carthaginians. Yeah. Then they start getting into poetry, and they start getting into history. Then you start getting Polybius. Polybius writes in the 2nd century BC. Then you start getting Diodorus of Sicily. You start getting all these authors right around the 1st century BC. They blow up with literature. But even before, the point I'm making is even before the literature, they had the myths. They had it's in their artworks. It's all over the place.
It's in their stories. It's in their names, their lives. It's diffused through everything. It is interesting to me, like how, and I think we've touched on this before. It's just, why do Christians? And I don't know if Jews feel this way. They have such anathema to see the influences of other traditions on their own, like literature, their books, their religion, right? It's weird that they're willing to say other people borrowed from us, but we didn't borrow from anyone else.
Isn't that something? That's crazy. Look at this right here. Persecution of pagans under Theodosius I, the Christian emperor, began in 381. Reiterated the ban of Constantine the Great on animal sacrifices. Prohibited haruspice and animal sacrifice.
Yeah.
Between 389 In 391, he issued Theodosian decrees, which established a practical ban on paganism. Visits to the temples were forbidden. The remaining pagan holidays were abolished. The sacred fire in the temple of Vesta in the Roman Forum was extinguished as the Vestal Virgins were disbanded. Damn. I mean, like, don't they know that it's so ironic that these cultures all go back to a common source, but then when you get to the 4th century, they think they're so separated from each other. Like, oh, this is evil paganism. Our Jewish religion's correct. Your evil paganism's wrong. But then you go back to the 400 BC, and you find out that the Jews are borrowing from Indo-Europeans.
But you know what's also interesting?
It's so ironic, though.
It's actually on this point that you just brought up, which I think is really, you know, it's interesting to me. Like, for example, all the Indo-Europeans in the earliest literature, they're very big on animal sacrifice. But over time, the Indo-European culture across the world does not like animal sacrifice. Like, even in the Vedic sense, like, you know, early Vedic texts are all like animal sacrifice this, and then later literature talks about hundreds of animals being sacrificed. And at some point around like 3rd or 4th, 5th century BC, you start seeing the Vedics start saying, actually, we can substitute other things for animals.
Right.
And then it happens with the Romans, it happens with the Greeks.
Do that too. The Pythagoreans. Pythagoreans were against animal sacrifice. They wanted to offer cakes. It's
interesting because, I mean, these guys must have clearly saw that the sacrifice itself is causing pain. And so there must be something there that makes them think about, like, why the sacrifice shouldn't necessarily have to be with animals.
But that's another reason why that Constantine was so successful in issuing that ban, is because the pagan philosophers, the Pythagoreans, the Neo-Pythagoreans, were like, yeah, we don't care about sacrifice. We're not into that stuff. They were it was people were on board with that one. That wasn't like a huge deal. That wasn't a huge blow, even though some pagans were upset about it. But they were more worried about their temples and their rituals being preserved than they were with animal sacrifice.
But in that sense, what's interesting is that's exactly what Christianity does too, right? It shifts the Jewish sacrifice into a Jewish male sacrifice, into cakes, wafers, and wine.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. It just those parallels across the board. And, you know, and to this day, like, you know, they still think they're eating the body and blood of Christ. Whereas I would say pagans today, even when you eat a cake from a sacrifice, are not like, well, this is the goat that was supposed to be there or whatever.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on all this? I haven't thrown it over to you. I'm going to kind of throw it over to you for a few minutes. If you have anything you want to talk about or bring up, if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, so I think in this period, what's also very interesting to me is, you know, like we were talking about, I think a previous other stream that we did, you know, not just this particular aspects of the fire sacrifice and the altar and so on, but just the mythology of Judaism and its connections to Indo-Europeans. Like, you know, you guys always talk about like the Odyssey and those parallels, but like there's the Indo-European stuff like Indra, Vitra, you know, Yahweh, Leviathan, and then the entire like connection with the Mesopotamian traditions. I mean, these were all like in a state of, I mean, it's clear that, you know, at least with Tiamat and Marduk, it's very similar to Indra, Vritra, or Zeus, Typhon, those kind of relationships, right? And I often wonder if Yahweh was conceived of in the Jewish world as a deity like other deities with hands, feet, fighting a snake or, you know, a great dragon. How do later Christians view that particular story in that sense, right? Like, how does Yahweh defeat Leviathan? Just sends thunderbolts from the sky, and, you know, he's not wrestling with it. I mean, what's going on here?
And this is also reflected in the Indra myth.
Yeah, Indra and Vritra, right? So Indra defeats Vritra by tearing him in half and, you know, destroying him with like the Vajra, the weapon Vajra, which means thunderbolt, right? Or so there's two myths. One is it's one fashioned by a a god by the name of Vishwakarma. The other myth is actually he's not able to defeat Vritra, and so what he does is he has to go to a sage that sacrifices his own body through deep meditation, and Indra uses his spinal column as the thunderbolt because it reflects the lightning's edges, the spinal column looks like it's a thunderbolt itself, and he uses that as a weapon to defeat Vritra. Then he
look at this. This is, you can see the water demon thing, which is like another form of Leviathan, basically. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, the water demon is actually in the Rig Veda. He's represented as a snake, as like a snake or a dragon.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Huh. Oh, look at down here. Typhon.
Yeah, Typhon. Jormungandr. Yeah.
Norse mythology has their own version.
Kills Jormungandr, right?
This is Zeus and Typhon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although
my friend made a comment about the Indian war against the Pakistan people, and he said it's very fascinating that they were, and this is, I'm not saying this is cool or I support this, but it's just like a commentary on the fact that they were holding the water because they had all the water on the mountains.
Yeah.
Pakistan are on the bottom.
Yeah.
The Indians are on top of the mountains. They have the water. They can cut them off, which is what they were doing. And it was like that was Indra defeating the drought serpent.
Yeah, although
Indra, the water god, defeating the drought serpent, right?
Yeah, although it seems like it's flipped, right? In what withholding of the water is what Vritra does. Indra is the one that breaks the ford to create the rains.
Right, it was a reversal. That's what you're saying. It was a reversal of the myth was happening. It's very fascinating.
Yeah,
not in a good way. I'm just saying, like, this point. It's just a weird commentary on. Of
course, it is. Yeah, because we find mythic parallels in everything, right? This is why myths never die. They're always there. They're always present, and we see that.
And if this was in the ancient world and that happened, this would be a myth that would get written down. Something that actually happened. The god Indra came and he stopped the water from going down there.
Right.
This is how they would reflect history by telling stories this way.
Correct. And this same story plays out in the Mahabharata again. The Mahabharata war is another war of Indra versus Vritra.
Yeah.
With the armies of Duryodhana representing, if you look at the thing you just brought up, there's 99 forts, right? There's 99 fortresses.
This one?
No, the Indra Vritra myth you brought up.
Okay.
So if you look up here where it says, go here, right?
99 fortresses of Vritra.
Right. In Mahabharata, Arjuna fights 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. Arjuna is Indra, is directly Indra. Krishna is Vishnu. If you look again here on this, Vishnu, Indra, Arjuna, Krishna, Vishnu. The Kauravas, his cousins, are the 99 fortresses. So the author of the Mahabharata takes the Vedic mythology and retells it in a narrative, in a new narrative for a new generation of people. And like those motifs are playing out there, right? So it's really cool that way.
You also have Zeus and Typhon.
That's right.
Very much like Yahweh and the Leviathan.
Right, and they're all related by the Zeus and Typhon are like cousins.
Iota, Yod, he, Eta, and then Vav. Yod, he, Vav. Like, I'm not even saying that could be a coincidence. But
that's interesting.
I've never heard anyone make that connection that Yahweh and Zeus might be some sort of I don't know. I never thought of that. I just saw that just now actually.
No, that's pretty damn cool.
I wonder if there's something there. I don't know. No one knows where the name Yahweh comes from. It doesn't seem to be. It might not even be Semitic.
Yeah, you remember you were saying it was like I forget, man. You talked about the connection to Dionysus, Yahweh and Dionysus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's tons of overlap with the agricultural. So this is what I would say about Yahweh. He has a very agricultural layer to him, which is very Dionysian, which is why Plutarch thought that this god was Dionysus. But he also has other layers. He has like the Hephaestus layer, the metallurgy. He's a metallurgical god too.
Yahweh,
yeah, and then he's also, as you mentioned, the fire of. There's all these different faces of Yahweh. He's like Odin.
Is that because he took on all those qualities from the other deities in his pantheon?
I do think that. And I think Odin's like that too. Odin seems to be representative of a lot of different figures. Odin has the Apolline face, where he's got the two ravens that send out oracles. Apollo does that. He also has his name means frenzy. That's Dionysus. Dionysus is the god of the frenzy. Wodanus means frenzy. So he's very Dionysian. He's very Apollonian. He's also Saturnian, because he's the All Father who gives the golden age in the beginning. That's what Odin. So, and then he's got Hermes aspect, where he's All Father is only the term All Father is only applied to Saturn or Kronos and Odin. But
well, isn't Zeus called that too?
Not All Father. He's the Father, but he's not even called like All Father. That's always applied to the Kronos, the All Father, the original Father. So he's the father of the father. Zeus, on the other hand, is called son of Kronos. He's more often than not, Zeus is called son of Kronos. It's one of his common epithets.
Interesting.
So Zeus is actually called son more often than he's called father, but he's called father also because he's the father of other gods. But yeah, the father is Kronos. But anyways, the other aspect that's really common is Hermes or Mercury.
Yeah.
With the swift-footed, the idea that he can transport souls back and forth from Midgard to hell and to different places. Psychopomp role. That's very hermetic. This day is Woden's day, is Wednesday. In Latin, it's Mercury's day. They both are depicted with having wings on their heads.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Odin has a lot of different faces, and I think Yahweh is analogous in that way.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in the Vedic one, like there is a being known as the Yuspiter, right? But he's not the same as Indra. And Indra seems analogous to, more closer to Zeus, the Thunderer, than Deuspiter is, even though their names are similar. It's interesting how like these differences percolate out. But Indra doesn't have any fear of his son usurping him. He does have fear of human beings usurping him through doing 100 sacrifices. If they do 100, like a particular type of sacrifice, they get the power of Indra. And that's what he's afraid of. Yeah.
And that particular sacrifice had to be done a certain way with a certain aromatics, stuff like that.
Aromatics are less a concern in the Vedic tradition. It's more of the chanting of the mantra, pouring of the oil or ghee into the fire, and eventually the animal sacrifice is the last bit. That is the kind of least important aspect of the ritual itself.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the myth of the Cupria that I have here. I must have brought it somewhere because there's a super chat that I wanted to address. It was a really good question. It's the first one. Tracy Femstar, thank you for the super chat. What is the most obvious parallel from Greek myths and the Old Testament? Do you have one on the top of your head? Because I do for sure.
From the Greek myths, Old Testament.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from the Yahweh fighting Leviathan with Zeus and Typhon, I think that's one big one. I think the other one is the connection of. Actually, now I forget. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say in the Cupria myth, it's from the Homeric Octateuch. There's like 8 versions. So you have Homer's Iliad, Homer's Odyssey, but before the Iliad, you have the events of the Cupria, and then you have there's another one called the Telagony, which is another epilogue to Homer's Odyssey. So it goes Cupria, Iliad, Odyssey, Telagony, and then there's the Homeric hymns, and then there's another one too that I can't think of. Oh, the Achilleid.
But aren't those all written much later?
A lot of them are written by different. That's part of the Homeric. Textual corpus. It's like the Bible.
You're right.
They're not all written by Moses. Like there's a textual corpus. So the Homeric corpus these are part of it, and the other one's the Achilleid. This is the story of Achilles. It's also before the events of the Iliad, and he grows up among the Amazons. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, anyways, the Cupria. I'll just say it. I don't have to pull it up. You guys can take my word for it. You can look this up. Bruce Loudon. Bruce Loudon writes about this in Greek myth and the Bible. And so the story goes that Agamemnon was told by the priest, the priest of the gods, right, that you have gotten bad omens. You cannot go sack Troy unless you atone by sacrificing your daughter. Iphigenia. And Iphigenia was willing to go to her death. He didn't want to bring her. He didn't want to kill his daughter. But she was willing to do it. So he's going to bring her up. He brings her up to a mountain, puts her up on his funeral pyre, and he pulls out his knife. Actually, I have one right here. And he pulls out his knife, and he's going to slit her right before he commits the deed. Artemis comes, and there's different versions. In some of the versions, he does it.
Right.
But the later versions, they fix this. And this is reflected in the Hebrew Bible as well. I'll get back to it. Artemis, who's called an angelos, a messenger, sends a messenger, an angel. Artemis sends an angel. Literally, the word is angelos, sends a messenger that takes Iphigenia and transports her to the temple, where she becomes the high priest of Artemis for the rest of her days, basically deified. She's divine. And in some of the versions, she is divine. Divine Iphigenia. Now, that's interesting, because what does that remind you of? Abraham and Isaac, his only son. True. Sacrificing his own. And at the last second, he pulls out the knife. He's about to do the deed. And sure enough, an angel of the Lord, angel of Yahweh, comes and replaces. Oh, I forgot the biggest detail. What am I doing? Right after Iphigenia gets transported away to the temple, a deer is presented to Agamemnon to sacrifice instead, and someone will go, and so back to the Abraham version. Abraham gets a ram stuck in a thicket, so he sacrifices the ram instead of his son Isaac.
Right.
Now, why is one a ram and one a deer? Because the deer is sacred to Artemis. That's her sacred animal. She's always depicted with a bow and a deer, or a dog sometimes, but the deer is very sacred to Artemis. And so that's part of it. It's called the Trojan cycle. The Trojan cycle is all the Homeric literature that gets brought. Sometimes it's called an Octateuch. You have the Pentateuch, 5 books. Homer's called an Octateuch, 8 books. I think I named 6 of them, but there's 2 more somewhere laying around.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of other ones too, right? In the Old Testament, not just these ones we talked about. I feel like even the story of like Moses is somewhat in the Greek, but I don't remember which one though.
Look at this. This is in the museum, where you have Artemis with her sacred animal, the deer. And that's why in the Greek version of that myth, it's the deer and not a ram.
Well, and she's also in that myth. The reason that Agamemnon has to sacrifice is because he killed a deer in her sacred grove.
Yes. That's why she was pissed. That's why he had the bad omen. Good point. That was a good point. The reason why he got the bad omen from the priest was because he killed the deer. Exactly. And then isn't it ironic that she gives him another deer to sacrifice? Weird. But yeah, so that's that super chat. You know what I mean?
It is akin to the idea that it's my deer, just like the people of Israel are Yahweh's, right? They're his to do with as he pleases, just like deers are for her to do with as she pleases.
Right. Exactly. And ram sacrifice is big in Judaism.
Yeah.
Ram. A lot of the offerings that are done in Leviticus and Deuteronomy are ram offerings, and it was in derision. And this is according to the Egyptians. This was in derision to their god Amen. Amen. You do not sacrifice rams. Rams are sacred. So isn't that interesting? Don't sacrifice a deer. Artemis will be pissed. Don't sacrifice a ram. Amen will be pissed. But then you have the Yahwists that are like, we don't like Amen. He's the devil in our religion. We're going to sacrifice this god. We're going to kill it. So anyways, all right. Kurokabo thank you for the $20, says, suspicious the concepts that distinguish Pharisees from Sadducees are the same ones that scholars to say Judaism adopted from Zoroastrianism. Heaven, hell, this is a great point. Heaven, hell, angels, demons, Satan, coming savior, bodily resurrection, end times. Fascinating point. And this is such a good super chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because this is such a Pharisees even sounds like Parsees. It almost sounds like Persian.
Yeah.
Like the Pharisees are adopting all these concepts of angels and hell and and fire altars and all this new stuff, saviors and messiahs. The Sadducees are like, no, we don't want any of that stuff. We want to keep it simple. We want to keep the traditions that were handed down to us from before those days. From before I almost think you can make an argument that the Sadducees are doing their best to hold on to something that's older than Persian.
Well, it's interesting. I'm looking up a Wikipedia. It says scholar Thomas Walter Manson and Talmud expert Louis Finkelstein suggests Pharisee derives from Aramaic words parasaha and parsaha, meaning Persian or Persianizer.
There you go.
So,
there you go. And then guess what happens? So you have your Sadducees, who are the old Levites, the temple, the priest. That's the Sadducee. And the word comes from Zadok. Zadokim in Hebrew, sons of Zadok. And Zadok is the figure from the Old Testament who's with Moses and Aaron. He's one of the first priests of the tribe of Levi to travel into the Holy Land from Egypt. So when they say Sadducees, they're saying sons of Zadok, sons of Levi, basically going back to the 12 tribes.
Right.
Levi is one of the sons of Jacob. So it's very archaic. They're trying to preserve the oldest traditions they can think of. They don't even care about heaven or hell. They only care about the temple. That's it. And then the Pharisees are, as you said, they're Persianizers. They're like, no, we went to Persia and they know all these things about God. We didn't know all this stuff about God. Let's add these things. These are awesome. Indo-Europeanism starts getting involved in Judaism because of the Pharisees. And then at some point, you get these Hellenizers. And the book of Maccabees talks about this. The Hellenists, there was one faction, and the Hebrews was the other faction.
Right.
The Hellenists were led by a dude named Jesus, Yeshua Maccabee. And he changed his name to Jason because Yeshua was too Jewish. He wanted to sound Greek. So he changed his name to Jason. I could pull him up, actually. Maybe not Jason Maccabees. I think it's just from the Maccabean period. I think that was my mistake. I kept calling him Jason Maccabees, but it's not. That's a different Jason. Jason the high priest. But he's from the Maccabean period, but he's not the same as Jason Maccabees. I keep making that. It's my fault. I keep doing that. So if I led someone astray by that, I'm sorry. I'm correcting myself right now.
But that's the festival of Hanukkah.
Yes. Jason was the high priest of Israel from 175 to 171 BC. So people need to realize this. Hellenists were in charge of things for a period of time. They were running the temple. They were not outsiders. They were like the Democrat Party, whereas the Hebrews were like the Republican Party, the traditionalists. Well, look at this. His brother was Onias III from the Oneid family. He's also from the Oneid family. Josephus records that his name was originally Jesus before he changed it because he wanted to sound more Greek. And it says Jason's tenure came from a turbulent period, and ancient sources such as the book of 2 Maccabees are hostile to him as a moderate Hellenizer. Even if he was not an extreme to as his successor, the new king of the Seleucid Empire, which ruled Judea at the time, Antiochus Epiphanes, apparently started to auction off position of high priest to the highest bidder, whoever offered the most yearly tribute. I don't think this is true. I think this is a later story to try to make it seem like the Jewish high priests were not Hellenizing when I think they actually were. I think this is a retelling of the story, but I think the Hellenists were the reason why we have Christianity. Let me explain. The Hellenists, according to Josephus, were writing letters to the Greeks living in Sparta, to the Greeks living in Alexandria, and they were in contact with the other tribes of Pythagoreans and Platonists and and Dionysian people, and they were kind of like trading ideas with each other. And then you get these Jewish communities in all these Greek cities that speak Greek, and they read the Septuagint, and they're not really concerned with the temple. And it's around this time period where that starts. So I think the Hellenist party of the temple faction was what gave rise to what becomes Christianity. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Just the history of this is really interesting because, like, even earlier up there, the successor was named Menelaus. So I was like, all right, there's a Jewish guy named Menelaus.
Menelaus, that's a Greek name.
Yeah.
And look at this. What they're doing is they're trying to continue their Jewish tradition, but they're trying to be a little less. They're like, okay, circumcision, who cares? Like they act like Christians do. Isn't that funny? Like they're getting called out by the Jewish people for being like heretics and evil. But then later on, Christianity comes along and they're doing the same thing that these Hellenists were doing. They're trying to see Judaism in a different light. They're like Philo. The laws are just they're allegories of how we should live our lives, and maybe they just mean something deeper. And maybe we shouldn't care about circumcision. Maybe we shouldn't care about the Sabbath as much. Maybe we shouldn't care about the temple as much. That was what the Hellenists were doing. So you have, back to the super chat, you have the Sadducees, were the old school, then the Pharisees, and then these Hellenists, which might even branch off into what, I'm saying, like, this first century BC period, there's a lot of different forms of Judaism. You have the Essenes, you have the Zealots, you have the Therapeutai.
Are the Ammonites also Jewish, right? The Ammonites?
Who?
The Ammonites or
Ammonites?
I think they're called
Ebionites.
Ebionites, sorry.
Those are Christians. But yes, there are Jewish and they're law-abiding Christians.
Yes.
So, and there are some people who think the Ebionites go back to the Essenes. There's some connection between the Essenes and the Ebionites.
And then there's also the Nazarenes, right? Aren't they a separate group?
Yeah, I mean that's basically like the Christians, right? The Nazarenes and. Well, they call Jesus the sect ringleader of a sect called the Nazarenes.
Right, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
So that's basically what they are.
Yeah, it's very interesting how I mean, I guess it's like equivalent in modern day where you have like Orthodox, liberal, conservative Jews, right? It's I mean, it hasn't changed in that sense.
Right. And this goes back to the 170s when they're starting to do this.
Yeah.
And like I said, this guy becomes the high priest. He's not just some random outsider dude. He became the high priest.
Right.
So something was going on with that time period. Anything else? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, this question is so like vast and interesting just because, like, yeah, not only do you have like heaven and hell and demons and Satan and all these things coming from Zoroastrianism, right? Just the idea, although the Jews did have like angels, right? The seraphim and cherubim before, I would imagine. Well, actually, do you know what the earliest attestation of like angelic figures is?
We don't know because the reason why we don't know is because the Bible in the form we have it doesn't, like, the Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest manuscripts we have.
Yeah.
So we don't know, like, and that's another thing that Gad was trying to find in looking at this Yahweh temple. Was there evidence of like seraphim and that type of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. That could be a Pharisaic invention. That could be a new Persian period addition. Like, we don't know what the temple looked like in the Solomon period, or what so-called Solomon period.
Right.
We don't know if they had angels. We don't know if they had seraphim. I would guess that they didn't. I would bet that they did not. But that is a later thing.
And even it could be the case, like, for example, like, it seems clear to me that the Satan or Satan, as they depicted him, like the Book of Job, underwent a really big change afterwards, with maybe because of Angramanyu or Ahriman, and then became more like the opposite, as opposed to merely the adversary, the Satan
that you get in Job is not this evil opposition to God in any sense.
Yeah.
That is a later adoption of Zoroastrian principles of having a good and evil, a dark and light. And you see this with the Essenes, with the Qumran sect. The sons of light and the sons of darkness are at
Right.
war. That's very Zoroastrian.
Oh,
Very
100%.
Zoroastrian.
They call themselves that, by the way, in Zoroastrian.
Sons of light.
Yeah, the followers of Ahura Mazda are sons of light.
Sons of light.
Followers of the Druid are the sons of darkness.
Isn't that just the same? They're just
Yeah.
literally adopting the same thing. And so, yeah, if I had to guess, I don't know, because the Sadducees, we don't even know if they really existed in the way that they're presenting themselves before the Persian period or something, or even before. Who knows? We just don't have any evidence to tell us what was going on in Yahwism in Judea. Well, once we get to the 4th century BCE, it's all black hole. The evidence runs out, and you just have the Bible.
Which is interesting.
You're just going off what the Bible says.
There's not too much like literary evidence before that period, right? Which is very interesting. Like, I mean,
except for Elephantine, which tells us an entirely different story of what's going on. It's the exact opposite of what you expect.
That's fascinating, right? It blows my mind. And did the Jews didn't have the concept of bodily resurrection, as far as we know, until after the Zoroastrians, which they do believe that, right? But even, for example, one of the ideas in Zoroastrianism, which I think the Jewish idea took, was like the bridge of from life to eternal life becomes a knife's edge, and then you have to walk it, and those that don't follow Asha fall away into darkness. It's very similar to this concept of the rich man going through to heaven is easier than for a camel to go through the eye of the needle, whatever. These ideas are playing out, I think, there too.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that seems like what Judaism ends up being. It's like an amalgamation of like their own local customs that they pass down from the Iron Age down. And then like you can see layers of Persian stuff, and you see layers of Greek stuff, and layers of Egyptian. Like you can see the different influencing happening in this type of, which is no different than any other culture anywhere.
Yeah.
You're never gonna find, there is no such thing as some sort of culture that blocked itself off from the world and just did its own thing.
Well, I think North America was very interesting, in South America, right? Because they were blocked off from.
Well, unless that's a good point. Unless they literally were blocked off. I mean, as far as the ancient Eurasian continent, you're not going to find, because like you said, you can go into some islands in Indonesia, and you're going to find blocked off people with foreign ideas. But like, if you're close to Babylon in any way, if you're close to Sumer or Mesopotamia or the Mediterranean or
even China, Japan, they have myths that came from all these areas.
Exactly, the Silk Road.
Yeah.
So you're still connected. You're still getting, these ideas are getting to you, whether you like it or not.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Even if you pretend to hate it, you're still gonna adopt. That's what the whole point of the polemic is.
Yeah.
It's to adopt an idea and to change it a little bit. And then
it's a good idea. It's idea. If it's a good idea, how do I bring it into my system? How do I incorporate it? Right. I mean, it's the growth of human knowledge, and I think it's pretty cool if you actually accept it and are like, hey, you know what, we got to grow. We got to grow with times, grow with new knowledge. I think it's very cool.
Absolutely. Thank you for that super chat, by the way. Let's see what else do we got. We have Piz Mood with the 199 super sticker. Appreciate you, Piz Mood. Good to see you. Thank you for that. Agoristo. A couple weeks ago, Dr. Price referenced an idea that the name of the Pharisee sect itself, we were just talking about this. You're a little bit ahead of us. Agoristo. Any thoughts on this? We were just talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think
just on Persian influence or even Vedic influence. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's much more Vedic influence is not there in the Jews as much as people, probably at all. I think the real influence is really going to be the Persian influence, and which itself is influenced by Vedic in that sense, right? Because they came from the same kind of roots and family in such a much more so than going back all the way to Proto-Indo-European.
Right.
Yeah, because like the gods are in Vedic and the Eastern are very similar. There's some inversions. Like Indra, like one of the coolest things I think in the Persian one is, so Indra in Vedic is like he is the national god. He's the god of the nation of the Bhartas. And then you have Indra in Zoroastrianism is part of the Druj, the Devas, which are like kind of start off being semi bad, but it become bad. But Indra's name in the Vedas is also Vritragyan, which means the killer of Vritra. But the character of Indra split in Zoroastrianism, where he becomes Indra the Deva, and then Varatagya the Amisha Spenta, which is the same name as Vritragyan. So these two, the one character of Indra gets split into two people in Zoroastrianism. He becomes Indra the Deva, the bad guy, and then the spirit of warriorness of the Misha Spentas. It's pretty interesting. I thought like that, how that split occurs.
Well, you mentioned the fact that you mentioned Deva,
Yeah,
and the way that the Devas are portrayed in Zoroastrianism as lesser sort of demonic figures.
yeah,
Where the Asuras are more of the angelic, the good ones, the ones that are following Ahura Mazda and not following Drudge. Well, that seems to be what you find in Judeo-Christianity. The daimon, which is what's cognate with Deva.
it is. Yeah,
The Indo-European word for that they're both cognate with. What is it again? Deus or
Deus.
And
No,
so you get
Deus with a W. Deiwos is what the Indo-European cognate is.
okay. How do you spell it?
Deus. Deiwos. I think that's how they do it.
Deus, yeah. Okay, so this is interesting. They're like sky gods, basically.
Right.
So they're like heaven. So this makes sense. Heaven is up, hell is down. The demons are down there. So they're taking the demons and putting them as like underworld figures, and they're taking angels and putting them in heaven. They're like flipping the whole script.
But Zoroastrianism doesn't postulate that devas are below.
No, it doesn't.
They're different realms. Like like if you think about it, like they're just different realms.
It seems to have been a Christian idea.
Yeah. Later on,
you know where they're getting that from? The Romans.
Yes.
In Roman religion, you have this idea that there's three types of souls, and the good souls float up. So Caesar, this was a big deal when Caesar died.
Yeah,
there was people who said they saw his soul float up,
right,
which means he was saved. He was deified. He became a god, and so that became a common thing in first century Roman religion, and Christianity adopts this as well. That when you die, if your soul was light, you floated up. If your soul was heavy with sin, you went down and you went to hell or Hades.
Yeah.
And so that's a very Roman idea that the Christians are adopting. The idea of good going up and bad going down. I did a whole video about this.
It's very interesting because in the Hindu world, so there are 14 what they call levels of or lokas in the universe. 7 upper ones and 7 lower ones. So the upper ones are like Bhu, Bhua, Sua, Janaha, Manaha, Tapaha, Satyam, and the lower ones are like Atala, Vitala, Patala. So but hell is not one of those. Hell sits aside from the 7 heavenly realms and then several lower realms. Hell, Naraka sits somewhere else.
Yeah.
Outside the universe and their formation. So when you die, you don't go down, you go somewhere else. They're below the earth or below the earthly realm are other realms of other people's existence, like the Nagas, which are the serpent types, like the Rakshasas, the demonic types, and all these other beings that are below the earth or below the earthly plane.
Yeah, I'm looking for a video that I did. I made a clip of it too, where I show the exact like transmission of this idea of like souls going up in Roman religion. I'm trying to find it, but what else what about in Indian religion, like in Vedic religion? What kind of heaven and hell dynamic is there? Or if there is one?
There is definitely heaven and hell. But there are moments in time that all souls go through. So in this sense, like you go to heaven to clear off some of your good karma for good actions. You go to hell to clear off some of your bad actions, and then you come back into the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. So, like, for example, within the later Puranic texts, not the Vedic text, but Puranic texts, all the gods, except for the supreme god, whichever one, either Vishnu or Shiva in their particular traditions, all the other deities are seen as stations that other souls get. So you, in this life, if you, or after many lives, do many great things, have probably been Brahma before, have been Indra before, have been Agni before, have been these gods before. But you're stuck in this cycle until you get moksha. So you can go to hell, become even, like the devil but the devil is not really a devil there. It's Yama. Yama, which is also called Dharma, is the lord of hell, Naraka, but that's because he's the one who gives justice. So the heaven and hell concepts exist. It's just not eternal, and nor is it fixed.
Yeah. And what about like underworld and things like that?
Yeah, so like I indicated, there's underworld. There's 7 underworlds. Like I think each underworld has a different like sense about it. There's like Patala, Vitala. So I mean, I'll give you the names. Let me figure this out. I'll show you. Okay, there's 7 lower realms. What are the lower realms? So, yeah, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. So these are like the rules of the realms below the earthly realm, and each realm has different beings and different rules that apply there. Like for example, like each level has a different ruler of that level that is supreme in that level, and they have different like beings, and you can go move through them and come down all around them.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know what I did with that video. I can't find it right now. I don't know. I know I made a video about this somewhere. I'm just trying to find where it is. Whatever. I'll find it in a second. Let me just go. I guess we'll go to the next super chat. But yeah, so thank you for the super chat, Argusto. And the next one is from Myth Vision, member 38 months. Can you guys calm down with being such badasses?
Derek, what's up, man? we got to do one with all 3 of us at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that super chat. Constellation Pegasus is in the house. Neil, can you do a video on Hecate? You could dig deeper in these Greek goddess figures than me. Wonder why Wicca is so much into her. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. Hecate is interesting, right? Because she's kind of like she is a Greek goddess, but she also might be from Anatolia. Like entirely outside the Olympian pantheon and Greek pantheon, and may have come from like another branch of Indo-European, and then was absorbed completely into the European the Greek pantheon as a goddess of magic, right? Like like Frigga or Freya in I think in Norse mythology is also goddess of magic, but satyr, right? And then you have goddesses and gods of magic in the Indian tradition, that are connected to beings like the Dakinis or things like that. They're magic oriented. It's very interesting stuff. I would love to see you do a deep dive on Hecate. I don't know much about her, but it'd be really cool.
Yeah. Damn, I can't find that video.
I think Angela Symposium talks about her a lot. I don't know.
Yeah. Hecate. Yeah. Another thing, Hecate, the word like to do a hex on somebody is something as connected to Hecate. So I think that's why a lot of Wicca people like her, because it's really just she's really like a witch character, like a witchcraft goddess. Yeah. So obviously, if you're into Wicca, you're into witchcraft, and where do you go for that? You go to Hecate, the goddess of magic and witchcraft, and the moon and stuff like that. So, and like the word for put a hex on somebody, word for hex. I was talking about this one time in a previous video. Curse, spell, jinx, hex. If you actually look at the etymology of that word, it's connected to Hecate. It's like the same verb or the same root word, hex. So Hecate and Hex, they're connected, and it's like spelling, cast a spell, or to bewitch, and that's where Hecate's name has that in there. So
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, that's just like a natural connection that you're gonna find with like to will something, hex, to will it. You will it. You want it to happen. You put a hex on it. The word Hecate actually means, looking it up, the Greek word hekon, meaning willing. There it is. Duh. Yeah, spot on. Means willing. Thus, she who works her will. That's what it means. So when you put a hex on somebody, you're putting your will on them. So obviously, if you're in Wicca, you're like you're doing what Hecate does. You're willing. You're putting your will out there. Do thou wilt. That's what that is. I would love to do a deeper dive into Hecate. That's a good idea, actually. What about Vedic religion? What kind of goddesses are like Hecate?
So, not any really per se. Like there's different classes of beings. So the way quote unquote like magic isn't separate from reality in the Vedic world. So each deity has their own area of power and magic that you can pull in to do the things you want. For example, in Tantra, there's certain tantric deities which are the same deities in regular Hindu deities, but they have a tantric form, and that tantric form can be either Somya, which means like a very gentle form, or Rodra form, which is fierce and powerful. And those forms can give power, magic, things of that nature. But each god has a different form of those. So their god has multiple versions of themselves and multiple classes of beings that fall into them. So so you might have like Munda or Chamundi, or these different deities that give you different energies, and some of that stuff can be negative. So like Dakinis are one that are considered like kind of the analogs to Apsaras, which Apsaras would be like celestial maidens. Dakinis are beings of magical power. Or you can have the Matrikas, who are like the mother goddesses of a tantric form of a certain deity, and they all have their own power, like Chinnamasti or things that will give you certain energy and power too. It's complex. I mean, look, it's there's tomes written on this, tombs and tombs and tombs of magic and how to do that kind of stuff.
Really? So like this idea, like magic, that's a word that has like, it's connected to magi, right? Isn't that go to the east pretty much?
Yeah, that comes from, I think it's connected to Meda, which is connected to wisdom. So I believe that's the case. Magi for the is connected to the Medas, the word Meda, which means wisdom. So Meda is both in Sanskrit. Mazda in Avestan is the same word as Meda in Sanskrit. So Mazda means Lord, wisdom. Ahura means Asura, which means Lord. So Lord wisdom is Ahura Mazda. And that same word can be said in Vedic as Asura Meda. So Meda means wisdom, which I think is cognate with magi over time. And so, yeah. So you can see that you could trace those connections.
Really?
So Tantra is a form of what they would call magic. There are, so in Vedic tradition, actually, let me rephrase. You've heard the term left-handed path, right?
Yeah.
That's from Vedic tradition.
Really?
So it's called abhichara. Abhichara means the left-handed action. So the Vedic rites are seen as right-handed, meaning they are following the norms, they're doing what's necessary. Abhichara is left-handed magic or left-handed rituals for nefarious purposes or for purposes of your own desires. So it's abhichara. If you look it up, it's interesting because it's analog with the Vedic paths.
All right, I can't find this video I was looking for, and I don't know where I put it. It's bothering me because I remember I did a really good deep dive into it. So I'm just gonna have to look it up and just kind of show people what I mean. So in Roman religion, there were different classifications of deities And sometimes this is related to people's spirits after they die. So there's the D inferi. You know how you get like Dante's Inferno? The idea that hell is below us. That's very Roman. That you don't find that. Look, search the Bible. You can't find the idea that hell is below us, or like, you know, there. I guess Sheol does kind of have the underworld, and Hades has the underworld figure. Right. But there's no concept of hell or heaven being above and hell being below. There's not two different things. They're all just underworld. So there's everyone goes to the underworld, even if you're good. Even Elysium, to the Greeks, Elysium was considered to be in the underworld. So the island of the blessed in the underworld. You didn't go up to there. But in Roman religion, there's this idea of bad or gods below, inferi, the mysterious manes. So it's just another one. D manes, chthonic deities, represents souls of deceased loved ones. So you have these different classifications, right? Layers, lemures, and genie. The genie are like the spirits of the dead. Mm-hmm. So like your family was from a certain genius. So that's where you get like, this is like your, I guess you would, this is like purgatory. Like you're not bad or good. And then there's lemures, malignant dead, restless spirits, interchangeable with larvae. So restless spirits, right? Different classifications. And then the layers. The layers were guardian deities, more like heavenly deities, good deities. So notice how you have like one of them is bad, good, one of them is good, and one of them is just in the middle. You almost can see the layout for heaven, hell, and purgatory. Very Roman. That's why when Dante, Trinity. And Trinity, right? And when Dante's doing his Divine Comedy, he goes through the three realms. That's not, you do not find that in Christianity or Judaism. Right. There's no purgatory. There's no heaven, hell, and purgatory. But in Roman religion, there was. You have the Inferno, and then you have the sort of in between the heaven, the Inferno, and the hell. So this is very Roman. I just barely scratched the surface on there. I'm just like flipping through this just to show you. But I actually broke this down way more deeply in one of my videos. And I don't know where I don't know what video it's in. It must be a section of one of my videos somewhere where I actually I go deep into the primary sources and show you like what they actually talked about in these sources. Layers Augusti. The layers are like the layers are guardian deities. They're like daimonic figures, but they're good. They're household gods. They serve you. They help you. They're not like, you know, Roman authors offer heroes and daimons as translators as layers. See, they're like guardian spirits. They're like your personal daimon. And then the genius was the familial spirits from it's like a guardian angel, I guess. That's what it says right here. But it's more of like your family genealogy. Like you're from a genius family. You know what I mean? So it says like household guardian spirit, male power, or the genius explicitly in Roman literature as Plautus, one of the characters jests at the father of another, so vicious that he uses cheap Samian, wherein sacrifices to his own genius. So you have your own genius. That's a familial thing.
Your guardian spirit, yeah.
Yeah. Versus, last but not least, these lemures, which is like spirits that are, let's see what it says, vengeful spirits. See? Representing wandering and vengeful spirits, those not afforded proper burial, funeral rites, affectionate cult. See what I mean, though? You can see a proto archaic version of heaven, hell, and purgatory in Roman religion. Yeah. Even though the way they describe it is way different, but you can see it. You can see like the roots are there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fascinating.
Yeah. D manes are the chthonic deities, and then the D inferni. So, anyways, I just wanted to show people that, and I'll find that video at some point, but I don't know what I did with it. It's somewhere on my channel, and I was proud of that video too. I did a lot of research in that video. Anyways,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you for that.
Yeah, send it to me when you find it. I'd love to see it.
I will. We got a few more actually. So let's do Rome 4787 says, what are the pre-Proto-Indo-European influences on Indian religion? You might know this, but this is hard.
Yeah. So this is very difficult because so the Harappan civilization or the Indus Valley civilization, we haven't deciphered anything. There's no we have what might be script. No one's ever deciphered it. We don't know what it says, so you don't know what the influence is. But we do have iconic influence from what we have is from the pictures. Like for example, the idea of a meditative posture. Some people are indicating that maybe meditation and its earlier forms maybe came from the Indus Valley because you find those motifs in artwork there. A lot of the current, iconography of the way when you do statues, the way women stand, the way men look similar to the artwork coming out of there. Now there's some indication that one theory, and I think this was held by this Indo-European scholar, well, primarily Indian scholar, Johannes Bronkhorst, who is a scholar, I think, of Dutch origin. He believes that maybe karma, maybe rebirth, those ideas might have come from the Harappan civilization into the Vedic civilization. But that's his interpretation. I don't agree with it, but I can see why he comes up with that idea. But it is difficult. So a lot of people would say, for example, Kali is Dravidian, or is non-Indo-European, or Krishna is a non-Indo-European. But again, you find those deities referenced in the Vedic texts themselves. Now, that being said, you can say maybe the Vedas were influenced by these other non-Indo-European cultures. So it's kind of a crapshoot, frankly. I'm sorry that doesn't answer your question.
No, that was good. I think you can deduce using logical deduction. For example, we know which are coming from Indo-European by doing comparative mythology, linguistical analysis.
To an extent, you do. Yeah, to an extent. Yeah.
We can't know for sure, but I'm saying that's how we do. That's how we figure out what's from the Indo-Europeans and what's not. And then when you see something that's completely 100% only Indians are doing that, you can sort of deduce that might be some sort of pre-Indo-European ritual, if not just local.
But the problem with that is there could be a kernel of Indo-European original idea that they all share, but the way it came out in each tradition came out differently. Right. Yeah, and then it changes, right? Because
it's not a solid deduction period. It's not a solid methodology at all. But it might be the only way to even start with this question.
Yeah, I mean, and you have to be very, very careful because it's do you want to excise what could have been inherent to a tradition, been lost in other traditions, right? Because again, if you look at preservation, it's basically the Sanskrit tradition that preserves most of the Indo-European stuff that we know. Almost everything you find in all other Indo-European linguistics and or mythology are pretty well preserved in the Vedic mythology, but not vice versa. So it's about preservation and who's held what.
Yeah. I think the answer to that though is look at Harappa. That's the best way to look. It's the best place to start because it's right there. It's right at the Indus Valley. It's right there.
Yeah. Just there's nothing. I mean, but we don't know the script, so we're kind of
Yeah, maybe whoever wrote this super chat, Rome. Maybe you should go to school and learn Harappan script, and you'll be rich. Whoever can crack that and linear A, whoever, they were just waiting for someone to come along and discover that.
But what's interesting about the Harappan civilization / Indus Valley civilization is they had deep ties with Ur. You actually, so the Mesopotamians called Harappan civilization cities their Mehola. That's where the term Mehola comes. It comes from the fact that they called a couple of these places in India as Mehola and another few other places. So there's a deep connection that goes pre-Indo-European, back to the Middle East from India, which is really interesting then.
Yeah, good question. Let's see. We got a couple more. Thank you for the super chats, everyone. S7 just drops to $2. Appreciate that. Can't complain. Thank you. I appreciate that. Stone Bible Study also drops a Canadian $10. Stone Bible Study. I like that name. I love that name. Thank you for that super chat. S7, $2. Devas equals leaders of Aryans. Asura, dark indigenous.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
No, that's yeah. Well, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense because the Devas are demonized by the Aryans.
Well, actually, if you go to the Rig Veda, the Devas themselves are called Asuras because Asura in the Rig Veda means Lord. It just means mighty one, Lord.
That dual thing is like a really much. I don't know. It like gets imposed on it because it's like daimons and angels.
Yeah,
demons and angels aren't different. An angel is a messenger, and it can be a daimon.
Yes,
in the same sense that asuras are daimons.
Yeah, and later in later Vedas, you start seeing an entire group of separate beings called asuras arise. But in the earliest Rig Vedic sources, they seem to be one and the same, and they're just like a term used to. Oh, that's a cute doggy.
She's trying to come up here. Do you hear that?
Yeah. And I think too many people try to read in racial or like colorism into the Vedic text when I don't think it makes sense.
It's not there. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for that super chat. Philip Demick, thank you for the super chat. An underworld idea originating from catacomb culture. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Because you have especially in Asia Minor, where they dug out these gigantic, what is it called again? Anatolian.
I know what you're talking about. Like, yeah.
Here, I'll pull it up right now. Derinkuyu. Derinkuyu. Oh my God! Look at Derinkuyu. This thing is nuts. So this is a whole city. There's a whole bunch of these too. There's not just one. Where there's these giant cities underground. Look at this. And so they get these. I think this is one of the smaller ones too. I think there's another one that's even bigger. But yeah, the Cappadocia and this region, and so yeah, the underworld
from 8th to 7th century. Imagine the amount of freaking work these guys had to do to excavate that thing and like build this stuff out. That's pretty crazy.
By the Phrygians, yeah, these people were no joke. And then the Christians, the Byzantines took these over and put churches down there.
Yeah, the Cappadocian like mountains now, isn't this part of that?
And they would go down there and keep themselves hidden if there was an enemy. Like
there you go. Yeah, the Cappadocians, yeah.
Yeah, the Turks would take them over, and then they would or Mongols. The Mongols would come and take them over, and they would hide under these. They would hide for like decades if they had to, however long it took. No, because you can bring cattle down there. They had cattle rooms. They had farms down there. It's insane. So yeah, I'm sure there was some influence on the underworld idea from some people like this. I would bet that's a good idea. Good hypothesis. Korokobo, thank you for the super chat. Awesome convo. You're both great. Thank you. Hey Nina, would you consider interviewing a Zoroastrian Mobad priest like Dr. Ramir? Absolutely, I'd consider it. Yeah, I would have to find out.
He's from India. I mean, he's a Farsi. Yeah. Because there's only 2 groups left of Zoroastrians, right? They're the largest groups in India because they escaped there at the 8th century CE after the Islamic invasion, and they're called Farsis. Parsis. They're called Parsis. And they've actually so now they're they married within the community and all that stuff. So, but they still, I mean, sadly their traditions are dying. And then the other group is the Iranian ones that remained in Iran and now are across the world.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I would love to talk to some of those people and ask them what's going on with all that stuff, and definitely worth considering for sure. So thank you for that super chat. GD drops $10. Hinduism, the Judaism of the East. Christianity. I've made this comparison. Buddhism of the West. Did this simultaneously and similar shift in the spiritual hierarchy have something to do with economic changes occurring? By the way,
Yes.
Alan Watts points this out, that Hinduism is ancestral. It's starting to stay in one place, where Buddhism is trying to spread out and evangelize. And he says that in the same sense, Judaism is in one place, and then Christianity is trying to spread out and evangelize. So there is a good comparison to be made.
I don't think that's entirely right.
Mhm.
Like, for example, Hinduism until, let's say, 5th century CE was proselytizing pretty well. It was in Afghanistan. It was in Turkmenistan. It was in Southeast Asia.
Judaism has that stage too. Judaism
Yeah.
has, and you can read the sources in the first century BC and first century CE. Judaism was actually, in its sense, going out and trying to convert people. That's why we hear in the Bible it'll say Simon, a convert to Judaism, did this.
Yeah.
So there was, they both had that stage.
Yeah. But like Hinduism, when it goes into Southeast Asia in the last few centuries BCE, before Jesus, was going by merchants and going through it was never like really through conquest. Now that being said, I always find this comparison as Buddhism being this reform or like direct competitor offshoot to Hinduism to be really weird for a couple of reasons. Because Judaism Buddhism first of all is not a lay religion. It's not meant for laity. It's meant for ascetics, monks, and people like that. So its entire lay practice is Hinduism. The difference is the people that want to become free and get moksha or nirvana in their sense have to join the Sangha, which is the community of Buddhists, right? But those are ascetic Buddhists. There's no lay Buddhists. There's very few lay Buddhists. So which is why over time Buddhism starts adopting yagyas, the fire sacrifices, the mantras. Their tradition has none of that until roughly the first couple of centuries CE, when they're like, oh man, like we don't have as much lay support. Let's adopt the Hindu traditions and make them, Buddhist. So they did that. So it's interesting because they're functionally speaking, because Hinduism isn't like a religion in the sense of like Christianity and formed by doctrines and formed by dogma. So Buddhism at its core was seen as another branch of what you would call. So if you think about Indian religions, it really falls into two areas: Shramana and Brahmana. So Brahmana are basically the Vedic texts and the ritual practice of the Vedic texts. Shramana are the practices of people that don't purely adhere to the Vedic texts. They might be forest dwellers, they might be ascetics, they might be other people, but they actually have other practices too. So it's a different demarcation than Judaism and Christianity.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because you could be Buddhist and Hindu. You could do both at the same time.
I've recently found that out, that you can actually you can follow both, and there's not a lot of, they don't necessarily contradict.
No, Hinduism takes Buddha, makes him one of the avatars of Vishnu. Buddhism takes all the gods of Hinduism, makes them all lower than Buddha, and you could all worship each other. And
That's very fascinating.
Yeah,
that's very fascinating. So it's the Vedic line. That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's a better stated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was that one. I've got a couple more. Warlight for $2 says Gnostic sects had names. What about Martyrs sect?
Oh, I guess if you're a martyr, you're dead.
I think you're talking about Justin Martyr. And so the reason why they have names is because people gave them names. They're really just called Christians. But later on, when they start getting written about by the what's it called, the heresiologists, they become Valentinians, the followers of Valentinians, followers of Marcosians, the followers. But you actually have this in Orthodoxy too. You'll have like a sect of the followers of Origen, the followers of Justin Martyr, the followers of blah blah blah. They have this sort of thing going on in Orthodoxy too. One of the big examples is the followers of what's the name of the group? The name of the church father who had like a big following. Can't think of it right now, but yeah, this is actually just a common thing in Christianity. You find this even today, like the Jesuits over here, and this group does this, and they're still Catholics. They're not like out of communion with the church, but they have different names. right? Jesuits. What's another example?
Franciscans.
Franciscans. Yeah, there's all these different. There's just groups of people that are following a certain lineage,
Right.
and so a lot of these Gnostic groups that get named are because some author later on is giving them that name, and they're calling them Gnostic, and they're saying this is a Valentinian. But we don't actually have any sources of saying my name is John the Valentinian, or my name is Jacob the Carpocratian. We don't know that ever happened. In fact, we only find the evidence saying they're calling themselves Christians.
Yeah.
As a Christianoi. They're only that's all we only find that. So except for the Nacenes, the Naessenes seem to actually call themselves Naessenes, and they actually did call themselves Gnostics. So I shouldn't say all of it. There is some variation at play. There are some of these groups do consider themselves different from the rest. Naessenes are a great example. They are way off the mark. They're not orthodoxy, and they will admit that. So yeah, I guess it could be a little bit there's some gray areas is what I'm saying.
Right.
Thank you for that super chat. Samuel Penrod, thank you for the $5. I recall Dr. Robert McDonald's video with a Hindu man reviewing a biblical passage with as much mimetic correspondence to a Hindu text as a Greek one.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. If that's like, I'd love to see that.
Do you know who Robert McDonald is?
Yeah. I think you've had him on the podcast. And so has
Dennis McDonald.
Oh, Dennis. Oh, maybe
is that who
Dennis
they're talking about?
Oh, I don't know.
Robert McDonald. Scott. Maybe they're talking about Dennis McDonald.
I think it's Dennis. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Samuel Penrod. If you have that video, can you shoot it over? I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I even know which one he's talking about. With a Hindu man reviewing a biblical passage with as much mimetic. Yeah. No, this is definitely Dennis McDonald because it's mimesis.
Yeah. Mimesis, yeah.
And I'm not surprised that Dennis would know someone like this and that they would talk about this. So yeah, I want to look at that myself actually.
Yeah, I would love to see what
he's Samuel Penrod. If you can drop a link in the chat at some point, I could probably pin it maybe, or maybe people can find it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that super chat though. I appreciate that. That's a really good point. And exactly, yeah, I would love to see that. Well, one more. S7 says Deva battled the Asura, Indo-Aryan revered Deva.
So technically in the text, the Rig Veda particularly, Devas sometimes battle Asura in the later text.
Yeah, they do. They do.
In the earlier sections, they're not fighting the Asuras. They're fighting the Dasyus. The Dasyus are considered another tribe. Now there's a lot of discrepancy within scholars on who the Dasyus are. Some people will say they represent non-Aryan tribes, but it's also interesting that many Aryan tribes are called Dasyus too. So there might be some where it's just a term that's saying a non-Arya. So if you don't, or non-particular type of Arya, because the Arya term used in the Rig Veda is primarily used for a group of Aryas called the Bharatas or the Purus. They're descendants of Purvas. So those ones consider themselves to be the true quote unquote Aryas, and everyone else might be the Dasyus. Like when you get to the Battle of the 10 Kings, with the Dasharajya battle, which is in the Rig Veda, there's the one king Sudas, who is who's a Bharata, descendant of the Purus, fighting against 10 other kings, which includes Dasyus and other groups later termed Aryas, including the Persians. Or parts of the Persians. So he battles them in, well, I mean, I guess maybe a skirmish, if you could say, and he wins through the power of his priest, which is Vashishta. And so that, if you look at the Battle of the 10 Kings, you'll see that. So generally the enemies in this are called Dasyus. Yeah,
you also had this play. I don't know if you know, you would definitely know this over me. Angkor Wat, you ever heard of this place?
Yeah, I've been there. It's beautiful.
And from what I was told from people that, and then they could be wrong. I don't know if these people are even. Oh, Mount Meru. Is that the name of your right?
Yeah. Meru is the axis mundi of the entire Hindu, Buddhist, Jain universe.
It says that apparently there's 91 Asuras, and I think it shows them battling the Devas, right?
Yeah, so that's from this. It's a later story. It's found later in than the than the Vedic texts. So it's found in the Puranas and Mahabharata and Ramayana about the churning of the ocean, and that is the relief. It's one of the reliefs on the Angkor Wat temple.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think when was this one built?
Like 11th century.
Oh, okay. So
Like
yeah, it's later, and that's goes. You were just saying that this is a later idea.
Yeah, it's so the battle. I mean, the churning of the ocean is probably a 7th, 8th century CE idea, maybe a little before.
I don't understand, why do the Graham Hancock people like this place so much if it's so late?
I don't know, because Graham Hancock people are crazy.
They talk about this place like it's ancient,
It's
like
not that
Stone
ancient.
Age. Like they're
No.
like, oh my god, look at the technology, and it's like, yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful.
I'm blown away by it, but it's from the 12th century.
Yeah, it's
It's not that shocking anymore.
no, it's the equivalent of like going to Notre Dame, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's beautifully maintained. This is a beautiful place. And I've been there. I loved it. But yeah, it is a marvel, but it's not like ancient world, like 12,000 years ago temple or some shit like that.
Yeah. And you talk those people, those types of people that they just look for anytime they can get in and twist the evidence, they do it. Like, for example, the number 72 showing up in like ancient texts, that's precession of the equinoxes. Wait, why? Because 72 was for what it takes for 1 year to move 1 degree. Did you realize how arbitrary that is to say? Like, think about this. 72 is a number divisible by 12. So you're going to see it. And there's 12 zodiacs somewhere.
Correct.
12 astrological ages. 72 is going to show up somewhere in this mythology somewhere. It's just natural because the 12 is involved. So when you find it in an ancient text, that does not, it's like, and I made this comparison. Moses wore a red shirt. That means he was a Red Sox fan. Because the Red Sox were red. That's exactly what you're doing. It's the same silliest thing, you know what I mean?
No, it's interesting too, because like the sexagenal system, which is a sixth system, is a Mesopotamian system, right?
Yeah.
And it was adopted later by the Greeks, the Romans, the Indians. They brought that element in. That entire system is built by the Mesopotamians.
Right. Now,
pretty cool stuff.
For that argument to work, you would have to find the number 1,450 because that's what it takes for 1 cycle.
Yeah.
Or 25,000 years is the whole 12 cycle. But 1 degree of 1 constellation, that's such it's so arbitrary. What are we doing?
People want to find,
it's like me going, oh, this apartment complex across the street from me has 4 residents, 4 seasons. Like, I just like, you're just thinking of anything else that has number 4 in it. It's like so silly, man. All right. Anyways, any last thoughts? Couple, like, if you want to.
Yeah, this was as always. This is great. And I think like this exploring more of these connections within the ancient world is fascinating. Maybe next time we could talk about the philosophical ideas within Christianity and Eastern traditions. I would also say to people, like, if you guys are interested, like, I sometimes host Twitter spaces where if you guys want to jump on and actually talk with me in a group of people, on the Twitter space instead of just asking questions, welcome, add me on Twitter, add me whatever, and we can have good conversations. Hopefully Derek and Anil join us at some point on those too. It'll be fun. It's fun to actually talk to people and get feedback on the conversation. And like, guys, follow obviously Neil's work, amazing stuff. Support him on the channel. Check us out. If you guys have any topics you're interested in, drop me a line, man.
Yeah, we have one little last joined in. Says Zoroaster might be our Jewish prophet in captivity. I would say to that, well, does he say he is? Because he doesn't say he is. So why assume that? I guess I would ask why are we concluding that? I would say, anyways, he says he's from modern day Ashurbanipal. Was it called Ashurbanipal? Or what is it called again? Azerbaijan.
I think he's people either placed him somewhere in Afghanistan,
Or
Armenia, or
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're Caspian. So again, Jewish property in captivity. Well, is that what the sources say? Is there any sources that say this? That's what I want, because a lot of people will posit things like this, and I get it. We're trying to find interesting things. We're trying to crack things open. We're trying to discover something that no one's discovered yet. So I get it. I get the want to do that. But then you got to ask yourself, is there anything behind it? Is there a source that says this? Is there anything that suggests this? And in this case, I'm not aware of it, but you never know. You could always prove me wrong. And that's why I like having you guys on and getting your super chats and talking to people, because I do learn a lot from people on this channel that I get comments from. So,
yeah, I mean, definitely learn a whole ton. I guess he could be Jewish insofar as modern Judaism is a big product of him. So yeah. I guess if that's the case.
Yeah, that's true. Once again, hit that subscribe button for Meru Media. And I just remembered that I got to go and place the article that I was reading. I'll do that right after we get off.
Oh yeah, that's a great article. I want to check it out too.
Yeah, I'll put the article in the description as well. And so if you're watching this later, it'll be there. But that's it for me.
Yeah, man. Love, as always, man. Love talking to you. Love this stuff. It's really cool. And you got such a great community. So thank your community, man. You guys are fantastic, and I love the questions and love the support.
Thank you. And you just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over